And welcome back as we sit high atop the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Welcome back to Season 4 of AMX 1 Racing. Today's race, we're going to be out here with the next NASCAR Next Gen vehicles, and things are starting to heat up out here at our AMX 1 NASCAR races, as we've seen a battle all season long between two drivers sitting atop. My name is Kevin Garcia, and joining me today, I'm sitting here with Damon. Damon, what can we expect to see out here today?
Well, it's a lovely Saturday, so I'm expecting a lot of stuff. To be honest, we are going through the virtual 12 hours this evening right now, so might not be as many drivers this time around, but for those of you that are here watching, we guarantee you there's definitely going to be some intense driving going on. Also, I've never had an intro quite like that, so thanks a lot, Kevin. It's first time for me, and it's one hell of a welcome, I think.
Yeah, sorry about that. We had a little bit of technical issues. But yeah, it's awesome. This is my first time broadcasting with you. I've been here once before, and I was here last week when we were out at the Indy Oval, and that was interesting race to say the least. We've been mostly doing super speedways this season, and now we're starting to get into the second half, changing it up a bit. But again, today, like I said, we are at Atlanta Motor Speedway. It was redone recently, a couple of years ago. I know a lot of people are used to the legacy Atlanta Speedway, but today we do have the repaved one. And so this is going to be quite a bit of action today. Like I mentioned, our two leaders going into this are looking to battle out for that next level racing prize. But first, we have some housekeeping. Today, our race format will go as following. We are going to be here until April 21st with a season prize pool of $20,000 and next level racing gear. Our race format today is, of course, as always, our 20-minute qualifying session, which will end in a top 15 reverse grid. Going into heat number 1, we'll have a 20-minute heat, followed by another top 15 reverse grid, and into that second heat of 20 minutes. So, of course, if you want to join on here this season, driver cams are required. You can get all of the information on AMX Race and go to our AMX Discord. But the payout will be every $100 each month that you make. So once you hit $100, that will get paid out to your accounts. And race days are on Tuesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Of course, go to amxrace.com. Get in here, get in these races. And we love the more people we can get in here, the better. And have yourself a shot at some of those prizes. Our schedule, again, Tuesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. AMX 1 starts at 5:50 p.m. and AMX 10 races starting at 7:20 p.m. And of course, these are all GMT times. So make sure if you're in a different time zone that you check out where it is in your time zone. Come on out to race, 5:50 p.m. And we are live streaming, of course, here every single race. So, for the total AMX 1 season prize pool, here's how it goes. Starting in first place, you start with $7, second place $5, third place $4, and so on, all the way down into 15th place. Of course, we get the payouts for qualifying and the two different heats, and a total of an extra $1 added on for the fastest lap of each heat, totaling to $100 per race, $100 up for grabs. Come out here and shake things up a bit, get your payout, and we're gonna go next. Damon, let's see what cars that we have going on today. Oh, but first, our top 12. So currently leading your top 12 for AMX 1, we have Mauricio Lozano right there with 120 points, followed by second place, Diego Villarreal de Leon, who's only missed a couple of races all season. And in third place, Lois Renier, who has been killing it out here in the ACC races. Fourth Connor Healy. 5th place, Facundo Rago. Those two battling it out in the NASCAR. 6th place, Gerardo Bavio Ramos. 7th, Lucas Werle. 8th, Lautaro Gayoso. 9th place, Mateus Machado. 10th place, Fabian Nugier. 10th, Fabrizio Balziti. And rounding it out in your 12th place, we have Leo Mora. And of course, today for our NASCAR, here's our top 10. And we're going to start it off in number 10, Rodrigo Lisowski with 16 points, moving down his spot. 9th place, Roman Pascucci. 8th, Leo Mora. 7th, Mateus Machado. 6th, I guess I'm on this list as well, Kevin Garcia. 5th place, Fabrizio Balziti. 4th, Lautaro Gayoso. 3rd place, Diego Villarreal de Leon. 2nd, Facundo Rago. And I believe in first right now, we do have the Connor Healy. Again, only 2 points separating your leaders right now. So today's race, we could see a potential flip-flop of the lead. Facundo Rago, Connor Healy, flip-flopping back and forth for first and second. It's going to be a tight one, that's for sure. With only a few weeks left, anyone can still come in. And now, here's a little bit more info of where we're racing today. I'm going to hand it over to Damon. Damon, take it away.
Thank you very much. And as you've mentioned before, we are on Atlanta Motor Speedway today. It's much shorter as an oval than the other courses that we've had over the last couple of weeks. Only about 2.4 kilometers, but should still make for some pretty good racing. I think the cars here will be going around this track in about 30 seconds per lap. So we're going to have a lot of laps to cover. In the city of Hampton, in Atlanta, of course, opened in 1960. As Kevin mentioned, this track did undergo a bit of a remodeling in 2021, where they increased the banking of the curves from 24 degrees to 28 degrees. This is also one of the 3 drafting tracks, so I'm not sure if the restrictor plates are on for this one, but
Okay, and yes, like Damon was saying, that too. We will see it. These drafting out here today on such a short track, it always makes for a good one when you don't have those massive super speedways, when it's just a slightly shorter, but still a pretty good size. And of course, today's cars, we are going to be seeing your NASCAR Next Gen. Just look at those vehicles. These are the current ones being raced in real life, which they have quite a bit of horsepower. I know NASCAR fans always want more, but they stand at a staggering 670 horsepower. Of course, only rear-wheel drive, weighing in at about 1,500 kilos. And for this gen, they've gone away from the dog box, and they were now in the sequential gearbox. So coming up, we will be checking in on everyone that is here at the qualifying rounds. We have a few drivers, of course, like I said, battling it out. I'm going to be sounding like a broken record today just because it is sure to be some intense battles between our leaders, Facundo Rago and Connor Healy, who right now in qualifying, of course, if you want to get all of the lap times, everything as well, we will be having the QR code pop on throughout the stream to have the live race timing. But until then, so far, we have been seeing Connor Healy be setting a lot of the fastest lap times out here for our NASCAR races. Will he be able to set it up today? Well, we'll just have to wait and see.
okay, I'm back. I think I'm back. Sorry, I had some technical issues there. My browser ran out of memory, so we're doing this again.
Those technical issues always giving us troubles, but regardless of that, as long as these drivers aren't having technical issues, which we have seen a couple times with certain internet connections, the joys of iRacing and netcode, that can cause a little bit of issues here and there. But we start out with our SART Racing driver number 22. We have Diego Villarreal. And Diego has been very consistent this season, excuse me. Really putting up a lot of consistent lap times, not nearly missing only just a couple of races throughout the entire season. And as you can see from the leaderboards, that's left him pretty high on the leaderboard so far. So again, that just goes to show that consistency of showing up every single week will absolutely get you those payouts and get you those points.
Yeah, and we talked about Diego on his broadcast a couple of times. He's never really been a high-performing driver, so to speak, but he's always been consistent. Has made a couple of mistakes on track that cost him a bunch of positions, but regardless, because of how the payouts work for AMX 1, he's always been in a pretty well-paying position. So it's nice to see him on track today. We've also only got a few other drivers. We've got 6 drivers today, so par for the course for AMX 1.
And today I expect it to be some pretty fast lap times. Of course, the temp today is only 19.4 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, we have a nice cool track. We should expect these lap times to be a little bit faster than you might normally see out here at Atlanta.
Yeah, the cars are definitely running a little nicer because of the cool air, and you can see that we're on Diego Villarreal doing about 280 kilometers per hour as he's coming up to the start finish straight. So again, we're going to see the times be relatively close to each other, as of course we did see Connor Healy only 5 thousandths of a second behind Facundo Rago. So it's going to be pretty intense stuff, and I hope you guys will stick around and keep watching.
And if I know Connor Healy, he has a bit of a strategy going on at these super speedways where we see him clocking in the fastest lap right in those last couple of minutes. I'm not sure exactly what the tactic there is. Is it some tire savings? Is it to rile up the competition a little bit, make them a little nervous? But we can see, again, like you said, just 5 milliseconds. Can he make that time up and pass Facundo Rago? We have a little over 5 minutes left in this qualifying session to see if he will do that. And if you look at this, all 6 drivers, only 0.03 of a second off from the top spot. So again, this is going to be absolutely close racing if these drivers can keep up that consistency.
Yeah, and we say a lot of things about the qualifying pace of some of these drivers. Like, drivers are faster in qualifying, but they don't really perform particularly great during the actual heats. And especially for a track that's this short and is considered a drafting track, it's going to be a bit of a ask to see whether or not these guys will be able to stick together in a very close train. Because from my experience, once you leave the train unwillingly through an unforced error of some kind, it's going to be difficult for you. You will never be as fast as all the other drivers.
And from having some experience on these tracks, I can say that, yes, we're on board right now. Sorry about Facundo Rago, which he's coming to a stop. But like I was saying, of course, these ones actually being out here on the track, battling against these drivers, I can tell you, they have been consistently getting better. Every time I've been hopping on iRacing, I can see at least one of these people on almost at any time of day. And a lot of times, I've hopped in a couple other races just to see how these guys are doing, and they're putting in the work. They're putting in the practice. These guys, of course, some of them, as high as 3,000 I rating right now. Of course, for the AMX1, we don't have a minimum I rating to get in, but we do have a lot of people. Even Connor Healy was coming in as a rookie in NASCAR and has shown so far that, hey, if you have the skill, that just means go out there, put down the practice, and when you come back out, you come out victorious.
Yeah, skill is definitely important. You always need a stepping stone somewhere. And what AMX does like if you take part in online races, what it teaches you is discipline and racecraft, which is what you need to be a holistic driver for sim racing. And yeah, AMX1 is doing a pretty good job of honing these drivers into the weapons that they are going to be later on, as we're on board with Jehan An. He's actually quite of a dark horse in these NASCAR cut races because he's surprisingly really good on them.
Yes, and Jehan An, of course, he came in last week at Indianapolis. I believe that was the first time that we had seen him here in the AMX NASCAR races. But he is a very quick driver. There you can see him and Ramos over 3K iRating. These guys have been putting in the work for quite a while to have those A-class licenses and have their iRating that high. And now as we switch over, we have Gayoso, who is teammates with Facundo Rago on Team Voracious. And it looks like, well, he's slowing down here, so he just completed his lap, or maybe he's just wanting to get a little bit better start going in. But now we have Ramos in the brand new Mustang NASCAR, which you gotta love these cars out here. Of course, the rivalry between Ford and Chevrolet, and thrown it into the mix, of course, Toyota. It is just absolutely a great time out here. The number 69 car, nice, and you can see a smile on his face. He's having a great time out here. And for those of you watching on the stream, watching at home, we do have the timing sections down at the bottom, so you can get a good feel for how these drivers are improving their tracks. And here we go, with 2 minutes left. As usual, varying character for Connor Healy, going out in the number 98 Toyota car to try and set a faster lap. So I believe we're going to see here, will this keep him in second place, or will this throw him into that first place spot over top Facundo Rago?
Yeah, we're going to have to see here. So far, his sector times aren't looking great there. You can see yellow does mean he hasn't improved on his best so far. So he might not be too happy with this particular run. And as you mentioned before, the rivalry in NASCAR between Ford and Chevy, a tale as old as time itself for some people. And yeah, Toyota throwing into the mix. I actually mentioned this last week when they were driving the Xfinity cars at Indianapolis, and you were there, and I was remarking as to why Toyota decided to put the Supra in that class, because it looked really weird to see a stock car with a Supra front end.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, of course, NASCAR tradition in the U.S. has always been what wins on Sunday sells on Monday. That saying has been has been as old as time itself since NASCAR's begun. Of course, no longer racing actual stock cars in the class for quite a few years, but that still holds the same people out there. With the Supra being so new a few years ago, coming out, that had a lot of hype around it. Toyota's marketing department, of course, absolutely, I'm sure, had something to do with them getting involved in the racing. But our qualifying now comes to an end.
All right, we'll have the leaderboards up in just a second, but it's safe to say Facundo Rago managed to hold his time all the way to the very end, securing that first place in qualifying. Connor Healy, damn, he tried his best, but 5 millisecond difference between him and Facundo Rago brings him down in second place. Behind him is Rago's teammate Gayoso, another 8 milliseconds behind that. Gerardo Ramos will have to be happy with 4th, Jehanan in 5th, and Diego Villarreal, again, relatively consistent performer, but he will be starting first on the grid this time around.
And of course, you can see there on screen with your session winner, Facundo Rago. I'm sure he's chatting with his teammate. Again, these tracks where there's a lot of draft, it should be interesting when you start seeing some of these team dynamics. Once you start working with these other drivers rather than against them, I mean, that's really the key to success on these long straightaways. If you can find a drafting partner, man, that is always so much nicer to work together, get towards the front, try to drive away, hopefully. And also, it's never bad if anything ever happens, you have that person in the back just trying to watch you. I've seen it happen. I've had it happen to me before. And like we said, going onto the grid, first place, leading the pole position, who again reverse grid, Diego Villarreal, followed by Jay Han in that right lane. In the second lane, we have Gerardo Ramos, and next to him, Lautaro Gayoso, fifth, Connor Healy, and Facundo Rago. So, we are only going 3 deep this time, but again, these drivers are so close together. This should be some great pack racing as the pace car goes onto the track for these drivers. We're minutes away from going green here at Atlanta.
Yeah, this pace lap is going to be a lot shorter than most, of course, because of how short the track is. But I usually ask my co-commentators on what they're going to predict for this race. But of course, most of the times the things we predict don't come true because we either jinx it or something else happens. But I'm going to put this out there. I think Rago is one of the faster drivers in this particular class of cars. So I'm looking for him to take it, barring any heavy incidents.
You know, and from going against these drivers last weekend, we do have Han An, who is new to AMX NASCAR, but I'm going to go out there on a limb, and I'm going to say I'm going for Han An. He showed that he's extremely consistent. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a wreck last weekend, but again, pending that we don't have any crazy crashes going on, and we're green. So first we see, of course, the first two, Villarreal and Jay Han leading the way now.
Oh, Villarreal didn't have a particularly great start, and he's dropping all of his positions right now. I'm not sure what his strategy is. Could be looking to just sit back, watch everyone, and follow their pace because he doesn't feel comfortable setting his forward. But he's sitting in last place right now in the fight for first place. Gerardo Ramos and Han An, they're neck and neck beside each other, trying to get away from the train right now as the car, purple and blue of Connor Healy, is just behind them with the other two Uruguayans just behind as well. So they're closing the gap pretty quickly, and we might see the train form quite soon.
And of course, here today, we are racing 41 laps here, no cautions. So once someone does end up spinning out or going into a wall, there will be no yellow flags coming out. So there really plays into the strategy here. Do you sit back a little bit? One, try to save your tires. Of course, it's not like these 200 lap races where that is absolutely a huge strategy, but it definitely still comes into play. And as we see, as we're on board with Han An, that him and Ramos playing back and forth for the lead. I know for sure, having some of these incidents, none of these drivers want to get too close to each other, especially with so much at stake. And Connor Healy just right in the back. Oh, looks like contact.
It looked like a bit of network desynchronization there. They were clipping into each other, and Han An took the brunt of that impact. But these cup cars are very durable indeed, so he'll still be in the race. He's holding on to the back of the pack right now, but as long as he doesn't fall behind the train, he should still be fine. As you can see right now, he's on the tail of Facundo Rago. Rago hasn't been able to make any headway just yet. He's coming in on the inside, still behind Diego Villarreal. Villarreal probably not going to let him through. He goes narrow, holding on to that position right now, but they're catching up to Gayoso. Han An going in for the pass on the inside, has the draft working for him, and he makes it again past Villarreal. So he's got a bit of a challenge on his hands.
And just like that, unfortunately, the commentator's curse continues. As soon as we had started talking about not wrecking, we had a bit of, we'll see if it's a bit of net code or if they did indeed make contact back there. But right now, leading the pack is Connor Healy, just ahead of Ramos in that number 98 Toyota Supra. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner an incident between Ramos and it looks like, that's hard to say. There's definitely some net code going on there. You've seen the cars kind of go inside of each other, but whether that was Ramos just sliding up into Han, you know, our officials will have to, they'll have to check that out to make sure that there wasn't anything intentional going on there. But now back on board with Ramos, looking to overtake Healy. He's being very patient. Of course, we're only 7 laps into this race.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned a tire management earlier on because I wanted to ask you what it was like when you were in Indianapolis last week. Because me and Connor Nixon, not related to Healy, we were talking about how people were managing their tires all the way until the end, where it seemed like people were actually losing grip on the front end. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Indianapolis is one of those tracks that, since it doesn't have these steep banks like most of these other speedways, of course, Indianapolis was built for the Indy cars. Without those bankings, you just absolutely shred through your tires faster than any other track that I've raced on so far. Yeah, so I'd say even within a couple laps, during qualifying, you pretty much have to get it on that first lap, because even by the second lap, you start noticing your tire wear. And as the race goes on, it just goes through those tires so quick that every single lap starts feeling a little bit slower, a little bit different. Of course, if you have the deltas on screen, you can even see it in the timing, even if it's just a couple 100 seconds slower, even from the most consistent drivers. We slow down. I know there's a few people every time you get onto that front straight coming out of turn 4 that you see people drifting out there, getting super close to the wall, and unfortunately sometimes just tapping the wall. But like we said, we're back here at Atlanta, and after the repave, the banking is just a little bit steeper, allowing these cars to go just a little bit faster. So hopefully we don't see any of that hitting the wall coming out of the turn 4. That's usually the turn that does it at most tracks.
Yeah, thanks for the input. And you can already see earlier on when we were on board Ramos exactly how much drafting affects the performance of these cars. We can see that we're in qualifying, they were doing about 280 Ks around, 270 Ks around the track. But here, once they're in each other's drafts, they're doing 290, which is like a 10-kilometer difference. But that makes so much difference. You can see Gayoso is in the draft up onto Connor Healy's rear. Will he be able to make it past Gerardo Ramos? Because Ramos did go high and is losing the draft. Yes, he does. In fact, he takes the position away from Gayoso. So now Ramos is under heavy pressure from from Gayoso's teammate Rago here, who I pegged to be the overall winner for this night, but hasn't been able to make any headway just yet. So we're barring a mistake from any of the drivers in front. We're looking to see if Connor Healy can hold on to the lead all the way until the end. We're still only a quarter of the way through the race, so anything can happen.
Yes, and as we go back on board right now with Facundo Rago, it looks like all of the drivers are pretty much getting in line now. Of course, I think everyone here, we have some experienced drivers. They're just thinking, hey, it's better to just be patient, wait for those drivers in front of you to make those mistakes and capitalize on it. No need to force something where there isn't going to be something, especially, like you said, only a quarter of the way through the race. You know, that is the worst feeling as a driver, when you go into a race and coming in not even halfway through the race, just burning through your tires, start sliding, and then that slows you down for the rest of the race. But you can see here, of course, a few different lines going. We had Ramos there peeking a little bit on the inside apron. Is he looking to make a move, or is he going to just, again, hold it there in third place, saying, no, I'm going to wait for Gayoso and Healy to really battle it out and then make my move?
Yeah, I don't think he was particularly close enough to make a move, at least not as close as Gayoso is to Healy right now, so we could definitely see something happening from them. I thought I saw a little bit of contact there, but it just looks like the bumpy track made the car a little bit unsettled, but they're still holding it very nicely. And Ramos is going a little bit high and dipping back into the train, so he wants to stay in that drive for as long as possible. Doesn't want to lose any more time because there is a car that's in his draft just behind him. And a bit further back, we can see exactly how detrimental it is to not be a part of the train. Hey, Jehan An and Diego Villarreal are 1.2 seconds behind fourth place.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like you said, Jehan An and Diego Villarreal, once you do get out of that draft, it is super hard to get back in the train with those up front. But right now we are having a 4-car pack in the lead, and we'll see. I know one of the strategies here that looks like, let's see if Gayoso goes for it or not. We see it a little bit on some of the shorter tracks where you have to lift off throttle just slightly going into the banking, of doing a little bit of a contact on that bumper, just letting them know, hey, I'm here. if you don't get out of the way, I might get you out of the way. And of course, Dale Earnhardt, most famously known for using the bump and run, which, we have a little bit of blinking from Gayoso. Looks like he's having a little bit of internet connections. But like I was saying, some people, they say, hey, that's just NASCAR rubbing his racing. Other people look down upon it a little bit, but it just depends from your perspective. But it is absolutely a part of the sport, giving a little bump and nudge here and there, as long as you're not wrecking these other drivers.
And it seems something has happened to Diego Villarreal and Han. Diego made the pass, but for some reason, they're just dropping so much more time. They were 1.2 seconds behind P4, and now they're going back up to 3.3 seconds. So I'm kind of curious as to what actually happened there. Was there a little bit of contact? Did they brush up against the wall? How much speed did they lose to lose so much time?
Yeah, and we can see down there at the bottom right of the screen, your battle before P5 between Villarreal and Jehan. They are really close to each other. They are, again, like you said, they just dropped back out of nowhere. So we will have to see after the race kind of what ended up happening there. But right now, unless there's a big crash up ahead, it looks like they will continue to battle for P5. And right now as well, looks like between third and fourth, we have the two cars in the lead. We're pulling away just slightly behind third and fourth place. Of course, very consistent Connor Healy and Gayoso right now, staying close to that inside line. That is pretty much the fastest line at this track right now. I think those first couple laps, they realized, hey, if we're going to be trying to go too wide around this track, then we're really going to start burning through those tires. Of course, we might see that later on towards the last few laps of this race, since we have those four cars, see if they'll do a 2x2 trying to get around each other. But right now, again, you can see some of the lap times there. They're running just over 30 seconds. Ramos running almost a 30-second flat there. And you can see way in the background, barely coming out of that last turn, Villarreal and Han. But the focus on these drivers, as you can see in their driver cams, just absolute intensity coming from Healy and Gayoso.
Yeah, and it really goes to show that I wasn't really a big fan of oval racing before, but after watching this for a few weeks, I'm starting to see why it's so appealing to a lot of people. Yeah, definitely all you do is really turn left in oval racing, but it's almost always bumper to bumper, and there's always going to be a lot of intense passes. You don't even know whether or not it's going to end in a big wreck or whether or not the pass will be clean. And I think I didn't manage to mention this before when we were doing the track info coverage before I got disconnected. What the repaving did was not only increase the increase the angle of the banking, but also made the track a little bit narrower.
And even there, with having the narrow track, we do see, which typically most tracks just have a white line out at the bottom. Atlanta, they said, you know what, we want to make it a little bit interesting. They do have that red light. It's a red line down on the bottom by the apron, which makes it a little bit more vibrant. Makes it look really good from some of those aerial shots as well. And looking at the timing, it does look like so far we do have Facundo Rago with the fastest. Whoa!
Oh no, what happened to Ramos there? It looks like he just lost it at the end of that turn. And just like that, he's out of the train and probably out of contention unless he can catch back up, which seems heavily unlikely considering he's not getting the extra speed boost from the draft.
Yeah, and of course, we may have to see a replay of that just to get a better look later on. But we'll see if he starts dropping back. Maybe this is potentially with, we're already on lap 25 out of 41. If he drops back slightly, gets in another train with Villarreal and Han, would that be enough to help them catch up? I'm not too sure about that. But now, what was a 4-pack in the lead drops down to just 3. Connor Healy, Arturo Gayoso, and Facundo Rago. So now you can see those two voracious cars really possibly going to take advantage of this. Are we going to see a 2 versus 1 here with the two teammates in Connor Healy? This are the battles or the centuries when you have that going up against two teammates. If Connor Healy can pull off this win here, that just goes to show the caliber at what these guys are racing.
Yeah, and you can see just off the fact that you don't make it into the train anymore, you can see the times just keep dropping for Gerardo Ramos. He's just completely lost the objective right now and probably won't be able to catch up for some time. If we can get a speed reading of the cars on the track right now, we'll be able to see just how much speed he loses when not in the train. And you can see, here you go, Gerardo Ramos picture in picture. You can see what happened there. I think he might have overcorrected just a little bit out of that corner. Ended up on the apron, lost a lot of wheels, lost a lot of angle. And then just like that, he just loses all his speed and he's out of the train and pretty much out of the race.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, but at least we did see, of course, last weekend, Indianapolis Heat 1 was a very clean race, and we're seeing that so far in Heat 1 here at Atlanta. And I think that was a big thing going through Ramos's head is, hey, if he made a mistake, I know it's all right, well, if I'm going, I hope that this isn't as bad. Do a little bit of damage control. Luckily, he didn't spin out and end up going into anyone else. But like you said, that may just be his race for Heat number 1. And currently, lap 29, it is still Healy, Gayoso, and Rago, which, like I was saying before we had that incident earlier, Facundo Rago so far has the best time of just under 30 seconds at a 29.773. I think he's going to keep that lap timing as we're already into lap 30. These tires are starting to wear, and their times are slowly just starting to go down.
Yeah, and it remains to be seen whether or not Gayoso will be assisting Rago in making that pass happen on P1. It harkens back to, I can't believe I'm saying this, sort of harkens back to Ballad of Ricky Bobby, if anyone actually still remembers that movie. I think it's one of my favorite racing-based comedy movies I've seen in a while. I love that movie.
Yep, I love that too. So, speaking of that, we'll see if we see a little shake and bake here from the teammates later on. But right now, we are in the back of the pack with Jay Hanan and Viriel, where Hanan was my pick early on, but unfortunately, once him and Viriel got away from the lead pack, they slowly started getting back down, which you can see roughly almost a 10-second gap from that front pack. And off in the distance, you can see Ramos all by himself. We might have a battle for fourth coming up in a few laps if these two can work together to catch back up to Ramos. But it looks like Hanan playing it safe, just staying right in slot behind Viriel. Of course, I'm not sure if these guys, if they'll end up trying to get a little bit of that bumper draft, trying to bump each other a little bit to catch back up. But back to your leaders, Healy, Gayoso, Rago, as we're focusing right now, the number 7, Gayoso, right in the middle.
Yeah, and you can see just how close these cars are. Less than 3 tenths separate them. And we mentioned before that Diego Villarreal and Hanan have been battling, but because Ramos is on his own in isolation, he's not getting any draft, he's not getting any clean, and he's not getting any slipstream from anybody, so he's losing so much speed compared to all the drivers, even Villarreal and Hanan, who are in their own train and slowly creeping back into Gerardo Ramos's rear view. So this might be 2 separate 3-way battles for P1 and P4 respectively.
And looking right now, seeing Facundo Rago, how close he's staying to Gayoso in comparison between the gap between Gayoso and Healy. I would not be surprised if they're going to be setting up a slingshot, as we're only 6 laps left here at Atlanta in heat number 1. Like I said, a lot of these passes on some of these tracks, on these speedways, you really have to set up that pass a few laps ahead of time. A lot of people think, all right, well, I just got to wait, maybe 1 turn, 2 turns. Not exactly. A lot of these good passes, the strategy is usually, all right, we only have about 5 laps left. Now we need to start setting up the move. And you can see Connor Healy pulling away just a little bit. But again, maybe the strategy here is for Gayoso and Rago, save a little bit of tire until they get that. And we can see Ramos all the way back into 6th place now. So Villarreal and Hanan did catch him and passed him. So we'll have to see there. He's falling back fairly quick compared to what we expected. So we'll have to see exactly how that happened. But Connor Healy again, so far, a little bit of a gap between first and second place.
Yeah, he's managing to pull away from the train right now. Remains to be seen whether or not Gayoso can help Rago, can help both of them close the gap. Doesn't look like that is the case. They might be having a little bit of issues with tire wear. And Ramos, again, Diego and Hanan managed to make the pass so easy because they were just that much faster on the timing block as well. But Ramos is back in the train now, so he might look to mount an attack as long as his tires are still in good condition.
Oh, and I see on the timing, Gayoso is actually getting closer to Connor Healy there on the timing board. So they're looking to close that gap these last couple of rounds. So we have two different battles going on. The battle in the lead and the battle back here between 4th, 5th, and 6th place. Again, these last couple of laps, it is NASCAR. Anything can happen. People start getting a little bit more aggressive as they try to get that extra little place.
Oh, Diego Gerardo Ramos makes the pass happen on Hanan. Hanan barely saw it coming. He's closing himself in onto Hanan, shutting the door on him. Little bit of a contact shut there from Hanan. He's not particularly going to be happy with that. And Diego is next on the chopping block for Gerardo Ramos. We'll see if he'll be able to from the same slingshot just past him. As you can see, the gap between Gayoso and Healy just extended. It was less than a tenth earlier on. It now extended to half a second. Wonder if they tried to make something happen, but it didn't pan out for them. And Gerardo Ramos, man on the attack. We're on the penultimate lap right now. So there's not a lot of time. You have less than a minute to make something happen, so you better make it happen right now.
And like you're saying, of course, we'll see Ramos. He's peeking a little bit, letting Villarreal know, hey man, I am here and I am looking to gain one more place. But back to your leaders as we're coming into the penultimate lap here. Gayoso and Rago making the pass on the right in front of Healy.
Oh, that was so clean. They waited until they hit the white flag and then immediately launched the slingshot and made it past Connor Healy. Made it look trivial. Connor Healy, of course, being in front of the train, doesn't have the same luxury that these two other drivers have. So now he's on the back foot. And it looks like he won't be able to make up the gap in time to make the pass back. And it looks like the strategy that these two drivers on the same team, of course, teammates, manages to pull out at the very last minute. Worked out beautifully for them.
Yes, and like we said, of course, being teammate. Oh no, we had Hanan and Ramos, their bumpers getting taken off there towards the finish. Oh, be excited to see what happened there exactly towards the finish. But as we had seen, of course, the two teammates working together, setting up that pass to get Connor Healy on the last lap. That just goes to show you can be extremely consistent the entire time. Having that drafting partner helped immensely there in that last lap, passing Connor Healy, getting away with that win for Gayoso, and second place for Facundo Rago. So again, we will have to see how this ends up affecting the points after today's race, the flip-flop between Rago and Connor Healy.
It'd be interesting to see what happened in the interaction between Hanan and Ramos, because Ramos ended up in last place for that. You can see that not particularly great for both drivers, dropping significantly. And Diego Villarreal, props to him, he managed to stay consistent all the way to the end, managing a 4th place finish. Of course, the battle of the hour was the battle for P1, and again, beautiful slingshot move from the two teammates of Gayoso and Rago. Connor Healy still holding the fastest lap, however, so he's going to take solace in that, and he'll be starting at P4 on the grid for next heat.
Yes, of course, now going into heat number 2, that reverse grid absolutely shakes things up a bit. It gives those drivers, especially here, Hanan and Villarreal, Ramos as well. We'll see if now that they're at the front of the pack, of course, after heat 1, everyone gets a little bit more comfortable, sometimes a little bit more aggressive, but really just learning where's the fast line on this track today, and take what you learned from heat number 1, bring it into heat number 2. I feel like we will be getting a little bit closer racing here in heat number 2. Let's see if these guys all can keep it together as a pack, as we have Ramos and Han An leading that first row, followed by Diego Villarreal de Leon and Connor Healy. And in the last row, the two teammates for Voracious Racing, Facundo Rago and Lautaro Gayoso.
All right, we're about to finish the pace lap in just a minute. You can see the cars are starting to accelerate. Pretty much soon, green flags will go down and they'll be off. And there we go. You can see right now, Diego Villarreal holding up a line in P3 right now. Hanan making a move early, wants to get to the front of the pack as soon as possible. Connor Healy also going a bit high. And Villarreal is holding up Facundo Rago right now. So the train has already started forming, but there's two separate trains as two cars going too wide. 5 cars in fact. Gayoso is dropping a little bit, but he's catching back up. As you mentioned before, these drivers might get a bit more aggressive as they're more comfortable with the track. You can see here Diego Villarreal is also trying to be really aggressive, making it past Han An while staying in the draft of Gerardo Ramos, breaking apart just a little bit as Ramos goes low in as much time as possible through that fast line.
And that too, you can see Ramos as he is going down from the bottom up to that second lane. Is he trying to block and hold on to that first position? Or he might just be trying to hold on to that speed. Of course, like we said, that too wide, that outside line, you can hold your own with them, but at the expense of your tires. So now as things start settling down a little bit after lap 2, we have Ramos and Jay Han. Connor Healy taking the high line. That's very interesting. Looking like he's going to try and get that inside over Villarreal. And now we come to the point where everyone gets back to single file. Now is the time to be patient. 6 in a row, 6 drivers with Voracious, who just got first and second last race, now in the back, planning how they're going to get back up to the front. And Ramos, again, had a little bit of incident at the end of the last race, so we'll have to see how that comes into play here between him and Hanan.
And really, this early on in the race, you don't want to be making any big money moves because you don't want to end up in a position where any part of your car is compromised, like your tires, for example. As Hanan goes a bit high, is breaking apart from the train, thought he had enough speed to make the slingshot happen, doesn't seem like he did. Ends up dropping the position to Connor Healy, but they're still side by side as they're coming out to the next lap. Right now, of course, it's going to be a pretty tough battle, but we're still super early into the race. So at this point, I would pretty much just recommend you stay inside the train, formulate a strategy, and then execute it at the very last third of the race.
And I've seen someone there in the chat asking, are these NASCAR Next Gen cars faster than the V8 Supercars? Well, they're actually pretty close. I know a lot of people compare them. Of course, now Supercars, which is going to be coming up next after this race. But a lot of those people compare the Gen 3 Supercars to the NASCAR Gen 3 cars, which of course, or sorry, not NASCAR Gen 3, the next gen NASCAR, my apologies. The Supercars, the Gen 3 Supercars, now of course there's no more Holden or Ford Falcons, unfortunately for Australia. They have switched over since to the Mustang and Camaro, which of course are also being ran here in NASCAR Next Gen. But to answer that question, you know what? I'm not entirely too sure. They are actually very, very close. A little bit different strategy on the setup. I know one of the biggest things is just having the aerodynamics. So I'd say probably around an oval, if you put them side by side, there might be very close. Maybe the NASCAR edging out just a little bit. But again, on those road courses, an interesting thing would be to see, of course, in iRacing, who knows? Maybe one of these days we can set up a multi-class race between NASCAR and V8 Supercars. I guess only time will tell. But for now, back to our leaders, Ramos. As you can see, Hanan and Connor Healy right behind him, looking for that second place spot. Hanan holding on to it on the outside. Again, like I said, we are very early on. We'll see how that comes into play later on with the tire wear.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, going high on the banking means you do sacrifice a little bit higher at the expense of top speed. So I'm not particularly sure whether or not the strategy from Hanan is a little bit sound. You can see Connor Healy is very close to rubbing doors with Hanan right now. They're still side by side. But I don't know how long Hanan can keep up this pace if he keeps staying high.
Like we said, as we come almost into a quarter of the way through, it looks like the same as last race. That might be the strategy for the voracious drivers who are sitting in 5th and 6th place. Just be patient, work together, save those tires a little bit, and as we go further on through the race, if the other drivers make a mistake, they won't have to do much but just take advantage of that. But now we can see Connor Healy taking the lead over Ramos.
Yeah, Ramos went a little bit wide there, giving Connor Healy a little bit of a speed boost as he comes out of the draft and back into the train. Hanan also made the pass happen on him, so Ramos just dropped from 1st to 3rd within the span of 2 corners. He wants to get that position back, or he would rather just stay back, stay in the train, bide his time, conserve his tires, wait for the opportunity to strike. And after what happened last race, I do think there'd be a little bit of tempers flared between these two drivers that we're seeing on screen right now. Of course, Ramos and Hanan, to see if they'll be able to keep it together all the way until the end.
And right there we can see Ramos getting very close to the back of Hanan. Again, a big strategy that a lot of these drivers do is, even if you're not looking to make a pass, just getting in that other driver's mirror in front of you, just letting them know, hey man, any second now, I could be lurking to go on the outside, and he's going a little wide. Virial also a little wide, which gives opportunity for voracious Gayoso and Rago to kind of go up, and they pass Virial. Virial goes back down to 6th place.
And this is going to be a bit of a problem for Villarreal, that he was trying to stay on Ramos' tail to keep the draft going, but Ramos took the wrong line, ended up losing quite a bit of speed, which gives Gayoso and Rago the space to maneuver in front of Villarreal, because Villarreal, being at the back of the train, of course, ends up sacrificing a lot of his line and giving the cars in the back the slingshot. So now he's down all the way at the back of the pack. As you can see, the train is substantially closer than it was last race, so it is just a matter of consistency for these drivers now.
And that just goes to show that the littlest mistake of just going a little too wide opens up the door. And with these drivers, like I mentioned earlier, they keep consistently getting better every single week. So being in last week's race, I knew exactly as soon as I had made a mistake, that gave room for all these drivers to capitalize on that. So again, biggest thing here in these NASCAR races around the oval is you have to have extreme consistency along with your strategy. As we have a little bit of a snake going on there, Connor Healy still leading this one as he did for most of Heat 1. Again, that's the only unfortunate part in a NASCAR race, is when you are the lead driver in first for so long, that also has an effect on that tire wear just a little bit, like we seen last time. But Hanan, who last time heat number 1 was towards the back of the pack, is now in 2nd place, looking right there behind Connor Healy. You know that he is wanting this win. He is not, he had an unfortunate race last weekend with a crash. Heat number 1 today, and towards the back of the pack. So you know he is absolutely hungry for that win.
And you can see Ramos is actually taking a really tight line for the start-finish straight. I am not too privy to the details of whether or not that particular line is faster than most, but as long as he stays in the train, he should be fine in terms of speed. And despite the fact that Diego Villarreal did end up dropping to the back of the pack, he did set the fastest lap overall for this session, sub 30 seconds. So also him, if he manages to hold on to it all the end, he'll still walk away with a little bit of a bonus alongside his current race winnings. You see all these cars, they're starting to drop times just a little bit, not too much however, and Hanan waiting to bide his time. Less than a tenth of a second separates him and Connor Healy. And Connor Healy, as before, he's been in the lead for so long, but if anything happens, it will be within the last 2 laps of the race. So having to hold on to that lead for so long and then dropping it at the very end must not feel very good.
Yeah, that has to be one of the worst feelings as a driver, leading the entire race, having that first place only to just have that someone slingshot around you on that last lap, dropping it down to third place last heat. But right now, unlike the last heat, these drivers are still 6 in line. We do not have 2 packs growing this time. It is all in the single pack, and we have still the same running order for the last several laps. Again, biggest thing right now, patience. The number 2 Han An is looking, but again, slightly dropping back, staying just far enough off of Connor Healy to not lose the draft, but to still be letting him know, I'm coming for that P1. And as you can see on the right-hand side, of course, the live timing. Go ahead and scan the QR code and follow along with us for both of these races today. The live timing, you can get a little bit of a tap on what's going on, just slightly faster than what's showing on stream. And of course, if you want to know who has the fastest lap throughout the entire race, that is also on there as well. But now these drivers are getting just a little bit closer together as we're just over halfway through heat number 2.
And it's really interesting to think about when these drivers are in the same positions for such a long period of time. You sort of think that on a regular track, it's a bit of a lost state. You can see Diego Villarreal going in super low there on the apron. I think he lost it just a little bit. And then immediately falling away from the train, that's going to be extremely detrimental for him because he is a lower car on the field, not within draft. He's just going to lose so much time.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate for Diego Villarreal. Now dropping back nearly 2 seconds, and that may just be his race for heat number 2. So right now, again, what was a 6-way battle now turns down into a 5-way battle, but there's a slight gap between Hanan and Ramos, but we don't expect that, of course, as Ramos has a slightly different line, and I feel that throughout this race, you can see some of the drivers, they're wanting to stay in that draft, wanting to stay close behind the driver in front of them, but at the same time, trying to experiment a little bit. Do I go down on the apron near the start-finish line? Do I keep it just at the line? Just experimenting all over. 1 for tire saving, 2 for speed, and we have lurking in the background Arturo Gayoso and Facundo Rago, looking to see if they can make it another 1-2 for Team Voracious here, as we are on board now with the number 107 Facundo Rago, who is leading in front of his teammate Gayoso and just behind Ramos.
Oh, looks like they're going high. See if they had carried enough speed to make the slingshot happen. Doesn't look like that's the case right now. I take that back. Yeah, Gayoso actually taking away the position of lead car from Rago. They're probably switching strategies a little bit and setting different paces for the draft car right now. And so they need to gain as much speed as possible because that position change actually lost them quite a bit of time, giving Ramos, Han and Healy a little bit of time to get away from them. Ramos, again, is starting to slowly drop. I'm not sure the experimentation is working too much in his favor. Better to stick with the tried and true right now because we're still only past the halfway point of the race. We're not into the last quarter just yet. So you don't want to make any mistakes right now because you will slip, you will fall. And as we saw Diego Villarreal, that one slip is going to be the end of your race.
And as we're back on with the driver cams for your leader, Connor Healy, and in second place, Hanan. I love watching Hanan's cam. I noticed this from last week's race, that he does have the motion rig set up. In NASCAR, I'm not sure if that's really advantageous, you know. We'd have to ask him ourselves to see if that helps out here in the oval, where once you kind of just start getting in the zone, you worry a lot more just about that tire wear. I know a lot of drivers, it is very controversial whether or not that helps them on some of the road courses. Along with VR, we're seeing more drivers. Today in this NASCAR race, we do not have one, but we have seen a couple here and there. I know in the AMX 10 as well, we've seen Tim State is one of our notorious VR drivers. We'll see if some people, VR is getting cheap enough where they're not going to the 3 monitors. But right now on the outside, we do have the Team Voracious drivers looking to make that pass around Ramos, taking that high line, two in a line. See if they can keep this up. Again, we have just over 10 laps left.
Yeah, they try to make a pass there, but Ramos is doing a really good job at holding on to the position. However, because they're in a separate train on their own, they're keeping up in terms of speed. Will probably get the better line outside, coming up to the start-finish straight as we enter the third quarter of the race right now. You can see right now Rago is also making it past Ramos, and the slingshot. Brilliant move from these two drivers, but Ramos has to be able to interrupt them at some point. He makes it back past Rago, is going to try and shut the door on him a little bit. Rago, however, might have seen a little bit of contact there, although that could just be the camera angle. But just like that, Rago and Gayoso make it past Ramos.
Of course, things there getting a little bit spicy, but now let's see, like we mentioned earlier, these guys are going for that line on the outside. If they can keep it up, they might have a 2v2 with Connor Hillian on versus Gayoso and Rago, but we will still have to wait to see. Like we said, now officially 10 laps left in this race, but don't give up on Ramos just yet. He still has that inside line, and as we can see here, even though he's falling slightly behind the pack, that inside line is still just a little bit faster. So can he take his positions back? He's going to be battling it, or will he end up in the middle of Gayoso and Rago? Which, of course, if you're looking to have a drafting partner, you do not want to have that interrupted by someone else getting in the middle of you.
Yeah, and there's one thing to take note from this is that concentration, especially on a track like this, is absolutely paramount, because as we mentioned before, you make one mistake and that's your race done and dusted. You can see we saw it from Villarreal happening earlier on in the race, and we also saw it from Ramos earlier in Heat 1 as well. So he's trying to make sure he doesn't make the same mistake, but he's slowly dropping from behind the train right now. Hopefully he doesn't fall away too far behind, as Gayoso and Rago are looking to make a move onto the 1-2 of Hanan and Connor Healy. Not close enough just yet, but we have to see if they can close the gap within the next 5 laps or so, as Hanan is also looking to see if he can mount an attack within that time period.
And that too, we have Gayoso and Rago again looking to have a repeat of heat number 1, but this time Hanan is right there with Connor Healy. So will those two work together? I know Hanan is getting past right now. We have the two voracious teammates going on the outside. Now it's side by side. We have Hanan and Gayoso. Can Gayoso capitalize on this as Facundo Rago falls back a little bit, and Ramos sticking right there with them as well. Looks like they're still holding that outside line. Gonna see if they're able again. Up a little bit of a blinking in and out from Gayoso, but unfortunately they were not able to get that run. But still, like we said, 6 laps left. Can they keep this up? Looking for that slingshot. Good. There's an absolute great job of defending there from both Ramos and Hanan, as Gayoso and Rago fall back to the pack again.
Yeah, and I think what happened there is that Rago biffed the slingshot just a little bit, went a little bit too wide, and then ended up scrubbing a bit of speed, which gives Ramos the opportunity to come back into this battle right now. As you can see, amazing cinematic camera angle as Ramos makes his move onto Hanan. They're pulling up alongside each other. He goes low. Hanan is forced to go high in order to maintain his speed. Still holds on to the position just about now, but here comes Rago, is pulling up alongside the 3 wide coming into the start-finish straight. Oh, there's a lot of contact coming there. They're shutting doors on each other, rubbing doors, I should say. And Ramos is now stuck in the middle of the train of Gayoso and Rago. Will back out a little bit, but it looks like he's still sticking within the train, trying to interrupt this draft as much as possible. He doesn't want a repeat of what happened last race. However, Rago and Gayoso are going high right now, keeping the train to themselves, and Hanan has to make something happen if he wants to claw back this position, because he's just dropped from 2nd to 4th place right now. Ooh, this is gonna be a pretty tough battle. We've only got less than 4 laps remaining in the race right now, and Gayoso looking at that, look at that speed as he makes the pass onto Ramos. Rago should be following just a little bit. Oh, I think I got the cars mixed up. It was Rago in front actually being the lead car for Gayoso, but they're still too wide as they're coming out of lap 38 into lap 39. And Ramos, here he comes. He makes a pass on the corner. Healy, Gayoso, and Rago are also going high to make the same pass happen. And just like that, big accident!
Oh, no! There is huge contact in the field. It looks like pretty much everyone got there into that. We will have to absolutely see a bit of a replay there. It looked like you'd mentioned, Ramos being extremely aggressive, going up into that and just getting clipped. And now that lets Healy run away from first, but we have tons of damaged cars on the field right now. Oh, I know those guys are not going to be happy about that.
And they're definitely going to be incensed, but look at that. Connor Healy also slowed down. He has to go back into the pits to repair it. Rago is going to make the pass happen on him. He's staying out onto the track. It looks like he didn't take as much damage as we thought. Even with the bumper falling off, he's still carrying a lot of speed. And Connor Healy having to pit for damage. That's unfortunate for him because I thought his car looked the best out of all of them. But here it comes. Gayoso, Ramos, and Rago made it past. They're now in the 1, 2, 3. And it looks like the cars that lost their front bumpers are actually in the better condition.
And as we can see in the bottom right there,
Ramos goes high. Oh, but he clips Connor Healy on his way back into the track, and that ends up into Rago's car. Rago actually flips end over end. Somehow his car's not too particularly damaged because he ends up in first place, and Hanan having to go back into the pits because he crashed into the barrier afterwards. But really testament to the durability of these cup cars that Rago and Gayoso and Ramos were still able to drive out of that entire incident.
and we are here at the white flag, of course showing Facundo Rago in first place, and there's Connor Healy back on the track. Just an unfortunate event going on right there as Rago passes the finish line in first, followed by Ramos in second and Gayoso in third. Of course, here at NASCAR, like we said, anything can happen on those last couple of laps. Everyone fighting for that first position, and unfortunately, sometimes it ends in a big wreck. But congratulations to Facundo Rago, even after that flip and that damage on his car, finishing that race in first place. And Villarreal able to get back a couple places into fourth, coming all the way back. So that just shows, hey, even if you've fallen back 20 seconds out of the race, anything can happen. And he gained those couple of positions. Some victory donuts from Facundo Rago. You know he's excited about that, as this may be putting him quite a bit in the lead for the season championship with the most points after this. Look at that. So excited. More burnouts. Love to see it.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be a black stain on the mark of Connor Healy. He ended up the worst off of that crash, which is unfortunate for him. But Facundo Rago making it a double win for him. Actually making it a triple, actually, because I think he won qualifying as well. So this is a pretty clean sweep. Oh no, wait, Gayoso won Heat 1. Never mind, I take that back. But yeah, aside from that, I think great job from Voracious. Gayoso also holding the fastest lap. Connor Healy going to be kicking himself a little bit there, although I don't think that was particularly his fault. Hanan dropping all the way back down to 6th after what was a brilliant drive from him all the way up until the end. And just like that, what an ending. Like, honestly, what an ending.
And it's races like this that make what we do here just that much more worth it. Of course, Connor Healy leading both heats for nearly the entire race. Heat 1, it came down to the white flag where the Voracious team slingshotted around him, coming in 1, 2, 3, and that last race with only a couple laps to go. Huge crash in the field, and unfortunately, like we said, no yellow flags here for AMX1 NASCAR. But, Damon, what a race. What a race that was indeed. What are your final thoughts on today's heat?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was super clean up until the end, which is really unfortunate because it really speaks to volumes as to how much concentration you need for NASCAR. And at some point in time, I think it just broke for some of the people on the grid right now. We're going to be back in a few short moments. We'll be back around 20 minutes for AMX 10 and the V8 Supercars, of course. But until then, you got my thoughts. I want to know what your thoughts are.
So, of course, everyone, make sure to follow us at the AMX social links below on the screen, as well as sticking around the V8 Supercars, born in Australia, but we're not racing there today. We're going to be heading over from Atlanta up north a little bit to Watkins Glen International. So stick around for that. Today is a great day of all V8 racing, and the next one should be very interesting. Last time we were at Mount Panorama in Bathurst. Again today across the pond in the USA, which normally Watkins Glen is ran as a NASCAR Cup Car road race. But today we have the V8 Supercars, and I'm sure that's why people in chat, of course, everyone watching, feel free to chat along with us. We do read the comments, and we love seeing the interaction. We love seeing the questions. V8 Supercars, will they be faster today than the NASCAR Next Gen? We'll have to wait and see.
to save our home. We must travel through the gateway to find new energy.
Another beautiful day as we overlook the racetrack just outside of Watkins Glen, New York. Welcome back to Season 4 of AMX 10 Racing, where today we're at the wonderful Watkins Glen International with the Australian Supercars. We had a great NASCAR race earlier, and today it is all V8s. As like I said, coming across the pond from Australia over to New York, the V8 Supercars. We have this as a fan favorite. Alongside me today is Damon, and of course I am Kevin. Damon, great racing today. What can we expect out of these V8 Supercars?
Well, truth be told, Kevin, I've never commentated on V8 Supercars before, so I couldn't really tell you what I'm expecting to see. However, I do know the drivers that will be participating tonight, and I know some of these drivers are amazingly fast. I'm looking forward to see what they can do with these machines.
Yes, last time we had the AMX 10 race with the Supercars was at the famous Mount Panorama in Bathurst. But today, we are over at Watkins Glen in the US of A, which normally is known for the NASCAR racing it has, as well as being the stop for nearly 20 years from 1961 to 1980 as the Formula One United States Grand Prix. But today, we are going to be running the Cup configuration, so the same layout that a lot of the NASCAR tracks use. So, first, before we get into the races though, we do have a little bit of housekeeping for today. Of course, AMX 10, AMX Global Season 4. Started up at January 27th, and we're going all the way through April 21st with a season prize pool of $20,000 plus next level racing gear. So today, as the rest of this season has planned out, we have a 20-minute qualifying, followed by the top 15 going reverse grid into Heat 1 for another 20 minutes. And after Heat 1, we do another top 15 reverse grid, followed by a 20-minute Heat 2. And we've had a lot of feedback from these reverse grids. It makes things that much more competitive, gives a chance if you didn't have a great race the first heat, second heat, you might have moved up a few spots. And driver cams are required. If you want to join in these races, you have to be on camera. You can join the link via our AMX Discord or on our website. Payouts are paid out in after a $100 balance, paid out each month, and we race every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. For those of you watching at home, if you want to join these races, sign up at amxrace.com. We have all of the information there for both AMX1 and of course AMX 10. Our schedule, we do racing every Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday. AMX1 starts at 5:50 p.m. After the AMX1 race, we have AMX 10 starting at 7:20 p.m. Of course, all of these times are GMT. So for your other time zones, feel free to type it in and see what time that is. Come out and join. We still have a few weeks left this season. But as we can see here, the prize pool starting in first place, qualifying, first, second, and third, $30 to the winner, followed by $20, then $18, and it goes on down to there until 15th place. Then, of course, Heat 1, top 15 reverse grid, same payouts, 30, 20, 18, and so on, and into Heat 2. So, a total of $500 per race, but to race an AMX 10, you must have a minimum road I rating of 2,000 to join these races. So if you're over 2,000, you say, hey, I could use me some cash, I could use me some prizes, head on over to amxrace.com and get signed up. Here is your top 12 so far for AMX 10, starting in that number one position, Gael Valero, who is at 887. So you can just see absolutely the amount of people in here getting that prize money. Second place, Kieran Harrison. Third place, Aaron Vasquez. Fourth, Dino Filipa, followed in fifth place by Gaston Kulavi. Sixth, Jackson Hizenje. 7th place, Fabio Zamperlini. Followed by 8th, Simon De Mori. 9th place, Quarantine Guinez. 10th, Pedro Dean. 11th, Juan Blanat. And rounding it out in 12th place, Peter Zuba with 295 points. Of course, you can see on there as well, a couple drivers moving up a spot, couple drivers moving down a spot. But now, specifically for our AMX 10 rear-wheel drive class, starting down from Pedro Dean, who is at 118 points. Next up, Kieran Harrison, 152, followed by Gaston Kulavi at 159, Jackson SNJ with 170, Fabio Zamperlini, 175, Simon De Mori, 205, Dino Felipe going down 2 places with 225 points, and in 3rd place, starting with Juan Blanat, 2nd, Gael Valero, and your current points leader with 398 points, Aaron Vasquez, who's sitting there. He's been atop of the leaderboards all season long. Let's see if he can hold on to that top spot for the grand prize and the next level racing gear. So now we move on a little bit more info about what's going on with today's race. Damon, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. And yes, as you mentioned before, we are in Watkins Glen International for this time around, in the city of Watkins Glen, New York City, in the USA. Opened as a permanent circuit in 1956, but the original Watkins Glen was a street circuit that opened in 1948. About 4 kilometers long, so pretty fast laps from all these cars, especially these V8 supercars are going to be going around them quite quickly. And Watkins Glen is probably one of the most well-known US circuits because, of course, it hosted F1 for 12 years from 1961 to 1980, but it's also hosted WSC, Trans Am, Can-Am, NASCAR Cup, IMSA, and of course IndyCar. So a lot of pedigree behind this track. And speaking of pedigree and racing, the cars that we will be taking into Watkins Glen for tonight, of course, 2019 season V8 Supercars, as we'll have them up on screen in just a little bit. Now, V8 Supercars, of course, no longer by Holden, although you're seeing a Commodore right now. Holden dropped out of Australian car production somewhere in 2020, so they're not making any cars there anymore, but we're still happy to have them in iRacing. About 644 horsepower going through the rear wheels, sequential gearbox, less than 1400 kilos are these cars, and they've got pretty huge wings, so they've got good aero. And of course, you have the Holden VB Commodore and the Ford, I believe it's the Mustang for the 2019 season. Yes, it is the Mustang. However, on the grid right now, it's almost a one-make race because we only have one Ford. So it is going to be a one-make race, and I'm going to hand it back to you, Kevin, for qualifying.
Awesome, and like you said, it does look like it is a Holden stacked lineup today. And as we hop back in there, different from me, coming from the US, the right-hand drive, which a lot of people say is the correct way to drive. But we can see here, going into that inner loop, also known as the chicane, also known as the bus stop. Watkins Glen has a lot of nicknames for these different turns. And today you can see that riding along, just a little bit of the layout. Right there is the turnoff to the boot, which we are not running today. Watkins Glen is known for having that boot configuration, but today we are running the Cup configuration, which you do see a lot of the NASCARs. So the Cup configuration, a little bit faster, as we see Juan Blanat here, looking really focused, just trying to let a couple of people by, so that way he can come and set a fast lap. And who we see there pulling off the side, oh, that was the only Ford of Gael Valero. Gael Valero, of course, been driving Fords all season long when he gets the opportunity. He is our resident Ford guy in a line of nothing but Holdens.
Okay, we're on board Gaston Kulhavi here with his blacked out Holden Commodore Supercar. A very nice look on the cars right now. You always see these with super bright colors. And of course, I'm looking through the grid right now. We have 10 drivers on the track. I think the rest may be doing the Sebring endurance race on the other side. But we also have a bunch of familiar names. We have Gal Valero, very known quantity in AMX 10, alongside Juan Blenat, Gaston Pulhavi, Pedro Dean, Kieran Harrison, Fabio Zamperlini. There's one name I haven't seen very often is Caio Vinicius Gaspar. Is on Team Voracious as well, and we did see Team Voracious get a 1-2 in AMX 1 earlier tonight. Just behind him is going to be Rowan Pascucci, Jackson Resende, and our resident VR driver Tim State, who I'm happy to see is enjoying his time here.
Yeah, Damon, I love when Tim State comes in here. Of course, you can see everyone on the right-hand side. We do have a pretty good lineup today, a lot of high-class drivers, and of course, don't count out Tim State for being 2.2 KI rating. He has shown time and time again that he is still in here competing extremely well. I don't know if that VR, I'm gonna have to try it out for myself sometime. But Tim, we love you if you're watching this stream. Please keep coming back and being my fellow countrymen, showing these guys what the USA can do. But of course, we have a lot of the Brazilians out here today. The Brazilian teams here in AMX have been showing just how dominant they can be, along with a lot of South American drivers, both in AMX 1 and AMX 10 races. As we're back on board with Kyle Valero in the Ford. Here he comes up the S's. We have down to also Juan Blenat down in the timing at the bottom of the screen is improving on his section. So is Rowan Pascucci, of course. 13 minutes in to this 20-minute qualifier. We will still be seeing quite a few fastest laps set as we go over to Juan Blenat. Ooh, going a little wide, almost into the wall. But of course, hey, that is using as much track as you can as he comes across the finish line. Looking at that smile, I wish we had a separate channel to be able to hear what some of these drivers are saying while they're in the middle of the races. But back to your leader, Kyle Valero, who's currently sitting at a 109.66.
That looks like a 1.08, otherwise he wouldn't be top of the leaderboard. But yeah, I mean, really consistent time for Kyle Valero. No worries about that. It's really hard to see, especially when the onboard cams right now. But yeah, 108.6. So the only Ford in the pack of Holdens is leading the entire pack. So good on him. Juan Blenat probably could have taken that lap away from him had it not been for that final little bit of a fender bender with the barrier at the start-finish straight. So he was definitely kicking himself in the head for that. And Kieran Harrison, again, back into the pits. We've got less than 6 minutes left before the end of qualifying. And usually, I'm saying usually because there have been fringe cases where someone sets a last-minute flying lap that beats everyone. But most of the time, when we reach the final 5 minutes of the race, everyone's position is almost always going to be set in stone.
And of course, a lot of these drivers within a second of each other. We are only with a 10-driver grid today, which should make for an interesting AMX 10 race. We usually have a few people, but like Damon mentioned earlier, of course, at the same time today, we do have an iRacing special event going on. So I love that these drivers chose to come here anyways and battle for our AMX championship. Especially, I'm a little bit biased, being American. I love just hearing the V8 roar, whether it's an Australian car, an American car, a German car. I love the sound of these vehicles. And we will have to see if, iRacing, if they have enough interest, if they will update for the Gen 3 cars. Currently, these look like these are the 2019 cars. Unfortunately, Holden is no longer producing vehicles in Australia, and now the new Gen 3 supercars have since moved on to the Chevy Camaro, and for Ford, the Ford Mustang from the old Falcon. We see a little bit of getting squirrely there from Tim State. Maybe has still a little bit of cold tires, but he has plenty of time to set down and improve his lap time.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the Gen 3 cars because I think the Gen 2s are the last times we ever see this giant box-shaped wing because they went back to regular wings for Gen 3 onwards. And they improve on the aero so much. So this is really like the last batch of cars that actually kind of look like their stock counterparts. So it's going to be really interesting to see.
And for any of our Australian viewers out there too, we do know that there has been a little bit of controversy. We have some people, one of my mates saying, no, the 90s, those are the best supercars. We have some people saying that the current gen that we're racing today, these are the best supercars because they were the last ones of Australian manufacturing. And then we have some other people saying, no, those Gen 3, just the technology going into them, make some of the best races. But either way, we're all fans of all of these supercars, no matter the year. As we just see there, Kieran Harrison warming up his tires, looking like he's trying to go in for at least the last couple of laps to improve, get fourth a little bit higher than that third place that he's currently sitting in. Of course, Harrison, currently the only UK driver on the field. We're glad that he has been doing extremely well. Of course, with this smaller grid today, we expect there to be a little bit more bumping in these cars, as we always do when you have a big, heavy car. Sometimes it gets a little bit out of control coming out of these tighter turns, but if they're built anything like they're built in Australia, they can take some damage.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, Australia not known for its moderate climate. In fact, it's probably leaning onto the edge of two extremes when it comes to weather in Australia. So cars have to be built super tough, and we're definitely seeing that here right now. Here in Harrison, we know him to be a qualifying monster. Like, he consistently always sets fastest laps during qualifying session, and most of the times has been able to translate that into the actual races themselves, but didn't really end up in the best position last time around. So he's gonna want to have to make up some lost time.
And as we can see now on board with Pedro Dean, of course right here, rocking that orange livery. And back to Kieran Harrison on board, and a little bit over 1 minute left. Here he comes. Is he going to improve on his lap time as he goes into the chicane? And with these ones, those wide, oh no, he just lost it and into the wall. That might just be his qualifying for today, sitting in that third place.
Yeah, I think he sacked it a little bit because he went flying over the curb and couldn't correct his steering in time for the second part of the bus stop. So I think he just ended up sacking it, and he's going back into the pit. So he's not going to be too happy with that result. Doesn't have enough time to go out and set another lap, but still, P3 on the grid, that means you start at P8, which isn't a terrible position, all things considered.
Yeah, especially going into Heat 1 with that reverse grid. That'll give some of these drivers that maybe they had a little bit of an off qualifying. Of course, with the qualifying, we do have a full grid of traffic. So sometimes it's just hard to get that qualifying in there with having these cars right in front of you, or maybe you're just warming up your tires still and you have someone coming up behind not getting your ideal line. But as we are rounding out the qualifying, looks like Gal Valero is still sitting in that first place in the Ford Mustang.
Yeah, Gal Valero, repping the American Stallion of the Ford Mustang, is going to be taking the fastest lap of qualifying. Our session winner right there on screen. You can see him right now. Honda not that far behind, about 600s shy of that fast time. Kieran Harrison dropping down a little bit as well in third place. Gaston Kulhavi, pretty good time for him as well. About 2/10 behind the fastest lap. Pedro Dean rounding out the top 5, and then from there on we have Zamperlini, Gaspar, Mascucci, Resende, and Tim State, of course. He will be starting in P1 for Heat 1.
So as we get gridded up for our Heat 1, like you mentioned, Tim State only a couple seconds off of the leader and is now going to be leading the pack. Today, we are doing a standing start. We are not going to be starting from a roll, so it can be who's going to get the jump off the starting line. As we're waiting to
green
go
lights will be coming on soon.
Here's a couple seconds.
Waiting for a few more drivers to get prepared themselves and come into the race right now. Still a few drivers haven't quite loaded in yet, so we're going to be holding on until the green lights drop. But again, I wanted to point out that driving in VR is going to be a little bit more difficult than just driving on the wheel on the regular rig, because in VR, when everything's coming at you and you don't have that much peripheral vision and you don't see most of the area behind you, it can be a little bit scary, so it ups the danger factor. So I applaud Tim State for sticking with VR all the way.
And the driver's getting ready for the green. Here we go. And like that, we are off. Wow, with the number 23, Pascucci getting a great start off to lead the race going into turn 1. We have right there Tim State dropping from first down into the middle of the pack.
Yeah, unfortunate launch for Tim State there. He hasn't been able to really pull out some good launches despite starting in the front of the pack. Ends up conceding a lot of positions there. But just like that, Pascucci and Gaspar takes advantage of that opportunity. But Pedro Dean just behind them. The South Americans are taking control of this race right now, with Kieran Harrison holding on to P5 ahead of Gal Valero, who is stuck behind Tim State right now. We'll try to make a pass happen on him eventually. They're coming up to a big right-hander right now. They're pulling along side by side. We're on board with Jackson Resende and Pedro Dean. They're side by side. Pedro Dean took a really wide line. No, that is Kieran Harrison. In fact, I made a bit of a mistake there. But he took a really wide line to gain as much speed as he can to pull ahead of Jackson Resende. And he wants to mount an attack onto Pedro Dean, but has to close the gap just a little bit.
And we can see there coming into play in lap 1 already. Looks like Pedro Dean was blinking in and out just a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't affect the race too much going on. I know we've seen when drivers, unfortunately, if they're having internet issues, that sometimes that can lead to unwanted crashes. As we have Pascucci starting to get a little bit of a lead ahead coming in, but we still have a fairly close grid so far. And here in lap number 2, Juan Blanot just overtaking Tim State as Tim State goes down into 7th. Blanot up to 6th place as we're going into the chicane, the bus stop, as again, Pascucci, we can see if he is going to run away with the lead early on. It might be too soon to tell. Of course, we have 17 laps going on here today as the drivers coming out of that last wide turn, getting ready to go into what would normally be the chute. But now, looking to overcome, we have Kieran Harrison right behind Pedro Dean. He's looking for a move, and we will see coming up if he can do it as we come back onto the home stretch, running into lap number 3.
He's not particularly close enough to make a dive happen just yet right now, and he wants to be really careful because he's seen Pedro Dean blinking in and out of existence right there. He doesn't want to end up taking a line that Pedro Dean was on before he disappears, so as to not cause a crash. But Juan Blanot is making his way up the field quite quickly, as a matter of fact. Right now, he's pulling up behind Jackson Resende. He wants to make a pass up. We see Kieran Harrison flashing his lights there. He wants to make sure Pedro Dean knows he's there, doesn't interrupt his line, of course. And Juan Blanot just makes the pass onto Resende, making it look really easy. Gal Valero, of course, not that far behind. And Kieran Harrison makes it away, pulls away from Pedro Dean right now, letting him through. But Juan Blanot is a man on a mission right now, trying to gain as many positions as he can. He ended up finishing P2 in qualifying, so he started P9. But just like that, he's already made up 4 positions.
And as we can see, a little bit of a gap going between position number 1, 2, and 3. That little battle right there that you had seen of Kieran Harrison just trying to get past Dean. Let the 2 drivers in front of them just start pulling away just ever so slightly so we can see if Kieran Harrison can reel it back. But right now, we're on board with your current top qualifier of today, Gael Valero, who is looking like he is battling with Jackson Resende. Of course, both of these drivers, amazing drivers. We've seen them battling out as well, as Valero making the pass on the back straight. Will he get it in time? It looks like he will, going into the chicane, make that overtake as he climbs up another position.
Yeah, great slingshot from Valero to make the pass happen onto Resende. I think Resende had to let off just a little bit in order to let him through right now. But Gal Valero didn't do particularly well on Tuesday's race on AMX 10. Will look to make up a lot of time here. He's still second on the overall leaderboards, just behind Aaron Vasquez, who is not participating tonight. So he definitely has some time to make up for the point deficit. But Juan Blenat again trying to charge forward and make it past Pedro Dean. You can see Pedro Dean actually slipped a little bit on the exit there, so he didn't have the best run up coming out of the start finish straight into turn 1 right now. He's stuck in between Kieran Harrison and Juan Blenat. And Juan Blenat trying to see if he can find an opportunity to make it past right now. He wants to be really careful. He doesn't end up being caught in an incident between him and Pedro Dean.
And of course, you can see the concentration coming from Juan Blenat as they're going on the back straight down into the chicane. You know that he's seen a couple of those blinks from Pedro Dean. He's trying to be as cautious as he can to make sure he can secure that 4th place position and not end up in a wreck. As we come out of that, the outer loop, he's getting really close and blinking in and out of existence. He's going to go for the pass here. He's going to do it. He does indeed, breaking a little bit later than Pedro Dean. And I just have to be wondering what is going through Pedro Dean's head right now. I wonder if he knows he's having connection issues on his side as he goes a little bit wide. Oh, a couple people right into the very edge, coming onto the home straight.
Yeah, and you have to be particularly careful. Most of these drivers have this car under control, but Pedro Dean doesn't seem to have that much of a handle on it. Just yet, you can see him slipping in certain points where other drivers are going through it straight and narrow. But right now, the battle for 2nd place as Kieran Harrison manages to close the gap between him and Gaspar. Will he be able to make something happen pretty soon? I would wager we're almost reaching the halfway point of the race right now. We have about a minute a lap between these drivers, so definitely not that much time to get through. But Kieran Harrison right onto the bumper of Gaspar. I think he might look to make a pass happen by next lap. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, beautiful car these Holdens are.
And of course, Kieran Harrison, who did place 3rd in qualifying, was looking to make a little bit better improvement on that last lap. Unfortunately, he spun out, went into the wall. But right now, he has made his place all the way up 5 places into 3rd as he's battling it out with Gaspar. This battle looks like, oh, he goes for the move. Right here, we may see Kieran Harrison passing on the inside, going into turn 1.
I think Gaspar braked a little bit too early there. Kieran Harrison a bit more brave when it comes to slowing down, so he makes the pass happen, makes it really clean. So now Gaspar has to contend with Juan Blenat on his tail right now. Driving a little bit defensively because Juan Blenat's right on his tail right now. Ended up scrumming quite a bit of speed, which gives Juan Blenat opportunity on the run up through the next corner. Will he be able to make the pass happen just before they enter? Yes, he will, and he makes it look super clean. And Juan Blenat and Kieran Harrison both are on an absolute tear right now.
And Juan Blenat just absolute precision driving. That is such an easy place to try and turn up, to get a little bit too carried away trying to make that outside pass going into a chicane, but he manages to do it. And now we'll see, with a little bit of a lead from Pascucci, pulling away almost 2.5 seconds from Harrison, if Harrison and Blenat can continue running up through the pack to fight off Pascucci, we have just less than 10 laps to go. We can see if they'll be able to catch up and give Pascucci a run for his money. Where you can see right now on the rear bumper cam of Pascucci just how much of a lead he has. So if he can keep it nice and steady, not make any mistakes, he might just be walking away with that P1. But again, it is too soon to tell. About halfway through here in heat number 1 at Watkins Glen.
And if you look at the time deltas for Harrison and Pascucci, Harrison is making up a substantial amount of time onto Pascucci. The lead was 2.5 seconds at the start of the last lap. It's now down to 1.5 seconds. So he made up an entire second over the last 3 sectors of the race right now, trying to get as much of a runner as possible. Galvalero unable to make any headway with Pedro Dean still in front of him, but it looks like he's going for the pass right now. Has the inside line, but is unable to pull up alongside Pedro Dean before that left-hander, so can't make the move stick just yet. Still waiting for an opportunity to make something happen, but it looks like that's not going to come anytime soon.
And of course, here with this cup configuration today, also known as the long course, there are 3 very big straights that these drivers are taking advantage of, trying to get a little bit later braking their competitors, and it looks like so far that has been working out wondrously for those that have climbed their way towards the top all the way from the back of the grid. As we see right now, Guile Valero has come upon the rear bumper of Pedro Dean and now has been thinking the same thing that a lot of the other drivers have. How do I pass this guy that is blinking in and out of existence without causing a crash? As we come out of the outer loop right here, we'll see onto this next straight who is going to come out victorious, ending the lap 9. It looks like Pedro Dean going a little bit wide there. Guile Valero side by side right now. Who's going to get it into this next turn? We've seen a lot of overtakes happen right here, and it is Guile Valero up a place going on the outside.
And honestly, as we're cresting the halfway point of the race, we're a little bit past that point right now, and it's been very clean racing so far. So props to all of the drivers. I hope I didn't jinx them by saying that right now, as Valero is trying to make a move onto Gaspar. Gaspar not going to be too happy conceding so many positions right now, but didn't have the best exit out of turn 1, so giving Guile Valero even more time to close the gap between these 2 drivers right now. And Guile Valero looking to look for another move within this next couple of laps, and he looks like he might just get the opportunity, especially if they come out of the big corner towards the cup straight. And look at that, he's pulling up alongside Gaspar, making the pass happen just before the bus stop. And again, another overtaking spot for Guile Valero. He's made 2 overtakes in this very section.
Yes, Guile Valero so far, he is up 6 places, getting into 4th position all the way from the back of the grid at the beginning of the race. So, took him about 10 laps to get to where he is, and now he's aiming for Juan Blanot, who there is a little bit of a gap between, but as we see, the gap between your first 3 drivers might possibly close. They start battling it out. That might leave room for Guile Valero to come up and hope for that podium position. But right now, we're with Juan Blanot as he is in 3rd place, looking to make some room into that 2nd position. So, 11 laps in. Tires haven't completely started degrading yet, but there is a little bit of wear on here. Like I said, this is a very fast course today as we're going up through the S's and into the back straight. Right here, we've seen a lot of people be able to gain time going into the back straight. Of course, a lot of overtakes happening here today as we see a comfortable space between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Right now, things are at the point where these drivers are thinking, all right, we're more than halfway through the race. I've gotten through the grid. I've gotten through the chaos. Now it's time to focus and double down on getting that position on that leader in front of them.
Yeah, and just as Harrison is closing the gap sector by sector on Pascucci, Juan Blanot is doing the same behind Harrison right now. So this battle was supposed to be a 1v1 between Harrison and Pascucci, but it might end up into a 3-way battle for P1, and to see Harrison again slowly narrowing the gap between him and Pascucci. As if I look at the live timing board right now, the fastest lap is being held by Juan Blanot. So he's definitely making some time there. As Pascucci, I think he bottled the exit a little bit, giving Kieran Harrison even more time to catch up. And now the gap is now down below 7/10. So looking to see if he can make a move happen. He's coming onto the bus stop chicane right now, I believe that is. And he might see if he can try and make even more time up as they enter the big straight later on.
And we can see there from Pascucci, looked like he had a little bit of a wobble too, which again, Kieran Harrison was down 2.5 seconds just a few laps back, but now is looking to improve. He's going to be fighting for that 1st place here very soon, down to 0.3 of a second. I see people in here cheering on Harrison as we go down into turns 10 and 11. Will this be the lap that Kieran Harrison can make that move for 1st place as he goes on the outside?
Hey, I think Pascucci's going into the pit lane. I wonder what happened to him there, because I feel like his tires could have lasted a bit longer. So he ended up diving into the pit lane, slowing down enough for Kieran Harrison to take the lead. And Kieran Harrison is actually quite a substantial distance ahead of Juan Blanot. But now Blanot has to drive for his life in order to make up that gap, because Guile Valero is just behind him.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly what happened there with Pascucci. I'm not sure if he might have had a little bit of damage from earlier on in the race, because like we said, you mentioned the tires should not be enough to be needing replaced at this point in the race. But there is absolutely a reason, because he had such a substantial gap that gap started closing, and unfortunately going into the pit lanes. So now your new leader is Kieran Harrison, who has about a 2-second gap ahead of Guile Valero. So Guile Valero also putting the pedal to the metal, trying to make up that position as he gets to second place over Juan Blanat. But Juan Blanat is very close right on his rear as they go back across through turn 11, and behind them too we have another battle between Gaspar and Pedro Dean.
Yeah, and Guile Valero again overtaking the bus stop chicane. It's probably going to be his favorite corner of the track, I believe, as Gaspar is losing time to Pedro Dean. Pedro Dean makes the pass happen as they're entering turn 1 right now. He'll be able to hold it because the gap is pretty substantial between them, but he loses it a little bit at the exit, giving Gaspar a bit more time to catch up. However, the pass is clean, and he'll be holding on to that position for the time being as we're on board with Kieran Harrison right now. The gap between him and Valero is considerably narrowing. You can see how much time Valero is making up onto Harrison right now. Made up 3/10 in Sector 1, so Harrison under a little bit of pressure here.
And like we've seen, Guile Valero all the way from the back of the grid, moving up into second position, and that gap is slowly closing, as you can see in the time right now, down to just over a second, 1.2 seconds, and closing. But he still has about 3 laps left to get this done if he's going to make any moves on Kieran Harrison. You can see the concentration there on Kieran Harrison's face, just knowing that if he can just push it for a few more laps. Oh no! Kieran Harrison also going into the pits. What is going on here? Followed by... Oh, okay. Well, we have 2 people, Juan Blanat and Kieran Harrison going into the pits.
That is weird, because I guess they think the tire degradation is bad enough that it warrants at least 1 pit in the race, so that's why they're doing it right now. But Guile Valero is staying out on track, so he might be holding on to the very end. We'll have to see. There's only 2 laps left, so pitting now is going to be a problem for Guile Valero. He's probably just going to stay out on track the whole time.
Yeah, that is a very that is very unorthodox thing to see in such a short race here. But again, we'll have to see. That's already 3 drivers going into the pits. What their strategy is, unfortunately, looks like Zamperlini may be out of this race as he has dropped off the timing clock. He is now sitting back there in 10th. But your new leader from after that last pit stop, Guile Valero, who has gained a substantial lead, about 4 seconds above second place. And now, lap 15 coming to a close. We will see, will Guile Valero be able to hold this off as Pedro Dean goes into the pits as well?
Yeah, this is going to be a really tough thing to call, because I wasn't aware that you actually needed to pit for 17 laps of this race, but I guess the tire degradation was extensive enough that they felt it was required. But aside from that, however, we'll see if Guile Valero stays out on track. If he stays out of the pit lane for this lap, he's going to go the whole distance without ever needing to pit. And part of the car, I think that's pretty much going to be showing the capabilities of the Mustang if everyone else is pitting and he's not.
Yeah, and another thing that to actually mention is, a lot of these, which we didn't think of before, we're talking about tire wear, but also fuel consumption does come into play here as well. So some of these people that have been pushing it a little bit hard, if they may need to do a splash and dash, again, we will have to see later on, were these guys getting a little bit close on fuel, or was it their tires? But that leads Guile Valero. We'll see, will he end up pitting? He does pit. So of course, it does look like these guys, as he locks up a little bit, will have to make at least 1 pit stop to finish this race. This definitely throws a wrench in the machine of today's races. We did not expect this to happen. We thought they would be able to get through all 17 laps. So, right now it may be anyone's race as Gaspar continues to go into the white flag, lap 17.
Let's see if Gaspar manages to hold on to it. It looks like they're not doing any tire switches. It looks like, I think it might definitely just be fuel. And to think about it, I guess it kind of makes sense. I mean, these are big, large capacity V8s with a propensity for drinking up fuel, and they're being piloted in like heavy chassis. So I guess it kind of makes sense because see Gaspar. Oh, he's lost a lot of speed there. I think he might just be running out of fuel and he has to hold on for as long as possible.
This should make for an interesting finish. Will Gaspar have enough to make it through as we're halfway through the final lap? But we do have a few people. That 8-second gap is closing very quick onto Gaspar by Kulavi. Will Kulavi be able to close the gap going into the finish line, or will Gaspar have his victory? As we see those drivers lurking in the background as we're going into turn 10. One more turn before the checkered flag. Can Gaspar hold on to it? It looks like he just might. 3 seconds and closing, and Kulavi, Harrison right behind.
That is amazing. I mean, I guess right now we have another factor to consider in the next heat on whether or not you can save enough fuel to make it all the way to the end without needing to pit. You did see Gaspar losing quite a lot of speed there at the very end. He's probably really close to running out as well, but he manages to hold on all the way until the end. Gaston Kulhavi also doing the same. So the drivers with no stops ended up winning out. We'll have to see if they do the same thing for the next heat, because they will be starting at the back of the pack and it might be trouble for them.
Yeah, of course, that was Roman Pascucci was leading the race very early on, but after that pit stop, he unfortunately got knocked down all the way to 5th place, along with a few other drivers that were doing so well. What a twist to this heat number 1, as we have the drivers going into heat number 2, possibly thinking, all right, what is the strategy going to be? Now we know we might have to pit, but there is your session winner, Gaio Gaspar, which he looks so relieved right now to be not having to pit and ending up with that win. But 2nd place, Gaston Kulavi. 3rd, Kieran Harrison. 4th place, Gael Valero. 5th, Roman Pascucci. 6th place, Juan Blaynot, followed by Pedro Dean in 7th, Jackson SNJ in 8th, Team State coming in at 9th, and Fabio Zamperlini down in 10th place to round it up. With the fastest lap, of course, being Juan Blaynot.
Okay, we're coming out the heat 2 right now, and as we wait for the cars to respawn a little bit, and I take that back, they're going off right away as now Zamperlini is in the lead. Team State is right behind him, had a battle launch this time around, but here comes Pedro Dean on the outside, as on the inside actually, as they're coming into turn 1. Team State holding on to the lead just now. Juan Blaynot is holding on to P4, trying to get past Zamperlini, unable to do so just yet, but Pedro Dean and Team State holding on to the lead. Pedro Dean takes it away from Team State right now, and Team State end up taking a wide line through there, trying to avoid any incident. Look at that, I think that was a car that just hit the wall. That was Jackson Resende, grazed the wall, losing a lot of speed. Gavalero taking opportunity and sneezing it, giving himself an extra position ahead, making it past Zamperlini as well. Will he be able to make anything happen coming up to the Bastard chicane? Not just yet, but he's on the tail of Pascucci.
Yeah, Jackson right there getting a little aggressive and ending up in the wall. Hopefully that didn't do any damage to his vehicle as he continues to look to climb through the ranks. But right now, we have Kieran Harrison, who is sitting in 7th place. This is going to be a lot more aggressive. Of course, we've seen Pedro Dean. It slowly started falling down the ranks in the last heat and is now holding on to that P1 position. But will he be able to keep it as Tim State and Juan Blaynot are closing in behind him? A little bit of a gap going down, but now we are through. Oh no! We have Kyle Valero into the pits early. Let's see if this is strategy or if something might have happened to his car. Is he going to fuel up just a little bit? That way he doesn't have to later on in the race get a little bit of breathing room and come back in. We will have to wait and see as Tim State gets passed by Juan Blaynot. Juan Blaynot is just absolutely flying through this track today.
I think Gavalero is strategizing because he knows the fact that he can do 16 laps at max speed before needing to pit for the final lap. So what he's going to do is going to do one flying lap first, pit now so that he doesn't have to pit later on and make up a lot of lost time at the final stretch of the race. But it will be something to watch, especially considering a couple of these drivers did no stops and they were really slowing down near the end. Kieran Harrison now on board, trying to make it past Tim State. Tim State, we're going to have to give some room if they brakes a little bit. Yeah, he braked a little bit early, but he still has dropped onto Harrison coming into that. I take that back right now. He just lets Harrison through. We won't be able to do the same thing for Jackson Resende. Resende wasn't close enough to make that pass happen near the end. But Harrison, another man on the mission, wants to get back his position that he almost got out of Heat 1 until he had to pit.
And we'll see if that early pit pays off for Kyle Valero, as now he's 24 seconds behind the lead. So as long as there isn't a 24-second pit stop, he may be reeling in those positions come those last few laps of the race. But right now we can see Kieran Harrison just in front of Jackson Asenge, and looks like we have a couple of different changes there. But now going into the bus stop, we have Kieran Harrison, who is battling it out with Pascucci in the all-black Holden.
Yeah, Kieran Harrison
coming onto the back straight right here.
Go. I was on the way you would continue to talk. Go. Keep going.
All right. So we have the inside right there. Kieran Harrison able to pull off that pass over Pascucci going into turn 10, and now coming into turn 11. Pascucci is not giving him too much room. We'll see if he fights him off right after this. Of course, onto that home straight right here. A lot of draft on these drivers with these big wings. The home straight and the back straight, two of the biggest sections as we go back into turn 1. Kieran Harrison pulling away just slightly, but our running order as it stands, Pedro Dean is in first, followed by Juan Blaynot and Kieran Harrison in third.
But Kieran Harrison back in third place, where he has been throughout qualifying and ended up also in Heat 1. So this is pretty much the comfort zone for him right now, but he wants to step out of it. He wants to make it past Juan Blaynot, and Juan Blaynot is also trying to make a charge onto Pedro Dean. Hasn't been able to hold the pace long enough that gives Juan Blaynot an opportunity to close the gap, and so is Harrison on the back end there. They're taking a very tight line through there as they're coming out. Bit of a tighter exit for Juan Blaynot because he wants to make a move on Pedro Dean as they're coming out into the back straight. Does make the pass happen just before the corner, and Pedro Dean has to concede that position for him. I don't think he'll be able to get it back because Kieran Harrison is going to be pressuring him on the rear as well. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place right now.
Yes, we have a great battle going on between our top 3 drivers. But looking back, oh no, Pedro Dean again, unfortunately just having a little bit of a blink, and we will have Kieran Harrison trying to take advantage of that, going to the inside for that pass. Will he get it? It looks like he will. Kieran Harrison moving up into P2 and Pedro Dean falling back into that P3 spot. But what is not going on is a battle in last place, as Kyle Valero just set his fastest lap, the best lap of the race, with a 108.7. So without all that traffic, looks like Kyle Valero is absolutely flying through the pack, making up that time as Tim State hits. But here we are again, Kieran Harrison looking to come for that number 1 position. Seen Juan Blaynot extremely fast around this track today. Can Kieran Harrison reel him back in to get that first place? We will have to wait and see.
Yeah, and then again, the strategy is going to be involving that one necessary fuel stop for these drivers, especially if you're driving this aggressively on the rear end, trying to keep pace with the car in front of you. You're going to be burning up a lot more fuel if you're not in the slipstream all the time. So it'll be interesting to see when they decide to pit. Will it be near the tail end of the race, which gives opportunity for other cars to make it pass and probably sinks the race for them? Or will they try to do it early and gain that positions later on?
And again, we'll see. Of course, these drivers planning to pit, putting that into their strategy. But one thing, too, is last heat, Gaspar did not pit, and that's how he ended up in that first position. So some of these drivers in the middle of the pack might be trying to take it a little bit easy to save fuel. That way they can avoid the pit altogether. Of course, like I said, most of these cars being Holdens, that gave a great run to see who will indeed be pushing and have to pit and who will hold back a little bit, and it might pay off. So tons of different strategies going into this race today. But again, Kieran Harrison still not being shaken by Juan Blaynot. But of course, we're only 6 laps into this 17-lap race, and as we seen last heat, anything can happen.
I'm sort of wondering exactly how small the fuel tanks of these supercars are if they can run now in a 20-minute race. But yeah, as they're coming out to Kieran Harrison right now, he's still trying to make a pass up to Juan Blaynot. Hopefully this battle doesn't drain too much of that tiny fuel tank for them, but they are pushing it pretty hard right now. Getting distance onto Pedrodin won't be able to keep up with them for very long, but you can see Kieran Harrison having to let off on the throttle just a little bit. Going to be paying attention to that fuel gauge more often than he usually does, especially in races like these. Pascucci is behind Pedrodin, will probably look to make a move on him sometime soon as they can entering the bus stop chicane. And just behind them, Jackson Resende and Zamperlini, they're pretty much in their own spot right now. You can see Kieran Harrison. Because we did see Gaspar not pitting, but he was immensely slow on that last lap, so it might not exactly pay off when these drivers know exactly how much time they can gain on him on that final lap.
And we can see here Juan Blena and Kieran Harrison starting to pull away a little bit. Almost a 2-second lead in front of Pedro Dean, as we see there in the back of the screen. Blinking out a little bit again as Roman Pascucci is trying to make a pass on him. But right now, again, Juan Blenat zooming through this field today. Absolutely crazy fast. Kyle Valero took the early pit. He is still in 9th place, looking to hopefully have everyone else pit so he can make those places back up. So we will have to see here, as hard as Blenat and Harrison are driving and trying to keep that gap ahead of everyone else, when will they pit? Also, who will pit first? We'll have to see. Will Harrison try to go for the undercut and hopefully make it out on top, or are they going to wait until the last possible second, try not to give anyone else the possibility to take that lead? As we come around,
and that's it.
Now coming out of the outer loop and the back straight before turn 10, not quite enough space to make the move going in here as we're about to close out lap number 8.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see right now whether or not they will be pitting at the same time, because they're so on pace with one another. I think they want to be helping each other as much as possible to make it to the end. Being in draft is going to be really useful in terms of fuel conservation, because you don't really have to go as hard as if you were driving on your own, so that might play into their benefit. But whether or not they'll actually have enough fuel to last the final lap in particular is going to be the tricky question to answer later on, as Harrison is closing the gap onto Juan Blena, but we'll have to see if he dares to make a move as we pass the halfway point of the race.
Yes, and I've seen someone in chat asking, are they slowing down? No, not quite slowing down yet, but from those onboards, you can hear that these drivers are letting off the throttle a lot earlier than usual. So, of course, that is a huge thing. If you are trying to save fuel, instead of waiting to the last possible second to brake hard, you let off that fuel just a little bit early, and even those little tiny let-offs of the throttle might just be enough for these two to not have to pit again. We're still lap 9 of 17, now going around turn 11 into the home straight into lap number 10. So we'll see, will their fuel saving strategy pay off for them? We will see. And that too, with such a big gap in front of them, will Pascucci, who he may be saving fuel as well, already 2.5 seconds compared to last race. He had to pit very late on in the race, and that cost him his first place position.
Yeah, you know, this sort of reminds me of that one special challenge in Gran Turismo 7 where you have to make it as far as possible on like 1 gallon of fuel. And this is sort of like that, but of course, when you're in a race, you're pretty much focused on a lot of other factors aside from just fuel conservation. So this adds an extra layer of pressure to these drivers that I'm not sure they're particularly used to, especially in AMX 10. They've probably done it before in other races as well, but they could formulate a quick strategy before the race even begins. But having to predict the fact that you will run out of fuel in this particular race might come as a bit of a shock to them.
And one thing we'll have to see moving forward is, of course, today the fuel strategies have been having to make a huge difference on the outcome. So we'll see. We have a few weeks left of Season 4, and in Season 5, seeing how today's race is going, will we end up seeing fuel strategies come later on in some of these AMX races? Again, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. This made for a very interesting race, turned the tables up on top of themselves, and now we have a battle in the midfield with Fabio Zamperlini trying to chase down Jackson Asenge.
as Zapparini hasn't been able to make any headway. Ended up in a pretty bad spot last race. Ended up at the back of the pack, even behind Tim Stain, in fact. So it's going to be a very comforting thought if he can make it past Pedro Dean into P4, because that'll be a really good position for him. But Ascende is trying to catch up to Pedro Dean, losing quite a bit of time actually. You can see that Gaspar is closing the gap on him. If he tries to go for a no-stop as well, he might end up losing too much fuel, especially if they're driving this aggressively in terms of the battle. But here comes the man of the hour, Gal Valero, with his early lap 1 pitting strategy, is slowly closing the gap. He was 24 seconds when he came out of the pit lane. It's now down to 11 seconds with about 5 laps left in the race. So if any of these drivers pit, he's going to make it past them, no problem.
Yeah, and of course, Kyle Valero, who earlier when he was coming out of the pits had over a 20-second gap between him and the rest of the pack, which has now gone down to roughly 11 seconds. So, with about 5 laps left, we'll see can Kyle Valero make up that time and hope that his strategy works out. But now back to the middle of the pack, Jackson Asenge and Gaspar having a really close battle. We have about 3 cars right there looking to take that 5th place position. The battle for P5 ensues as Gaspar goes to the inside. Oh, there's a little bit of contact, but no one gets off track. I know Gaspar and Asenge in a little bit of aggressive there, but it pays off in Gaspar's favor. But again, like I said, about 4.5 laps left of this. We will see if Asenge can get his revenge and take that spot back.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. I wonder if the lap timing board actually shows you fuel. I wonder if it actually shows you how much fuel these cars have. Doesn't seem like it does. So that might be a little bit difficult for us to really tell whether or not they'll need to pit. But aside from that, however, I think Juan Blanat still doing a really good job of holding on Kieran Harrison. Even though Kieran Harrison is right on his tail, you can see the picture. The battle for P5 is still heating up. But again, pit strategy is going to be a massive factor in whether or not this battle ends up in favor of any of these drivers.
Of course, you can see now back to the battle for first place between Juan Blanat and Kieran Harrison. Now that we're a little bit later into the race, we'll see if Kieran Harrison stops trying to save fuel and if he is going to go for that overtake there. And of course, now you can see pulling up in the overlays in the bottom right-hand corner. It looks like, of course, what? Wait. Now Harrison with the move against Juan Blanat to overtake him at first. Juan Blanat just went a little bit wide there as well. We will have to see. Wow. This battle is about to heat up now. I know that's getting Blanat a little bit ready to just drive with his foot through the floor. Blanat has been very fast, and let's see. 3 laps to go. Oh no! As Jackson Asenge goes a little wide into the wall.
Yeah, and I think that particular turn is going to be a bit of a weakness for Ascende there. We've seen him lose grip a couple of times, ended up understeering into the barrier there. Takes a little bit of damage, but I think he'll be just fine as Blanat and Harrison are trading positions as they come into the bus stop chicane. I think Harrison is starting to realize that we're pushing the end of the race. He has to conserve as much fuel as possible, and that gives Pascucci opportunity for an overtaking maneuver. And you can see Kieran Harrison is letting off the throttle quite a considerable amount now.
And that too, like we mentioned earlier, Pascucci was leading heat number 1 for a long time. This race, he was absolutely saving a lot of fuel, but now with just a couple laps left to go, Pascucci turning it up to 11, trying to make as many places as he can. He knows the guys in front of him are also trying to save a little bit of fuel, but now with having possibly a 3-way battle coming up for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, all of your podium positions may be changing over these next couple of laps as we go into lap number 15 out of 17. A 1-second gap between 1st place Juan Blanat and 2nd place Kieran Harrison as Pascucci looking to reel in that extra position, coming from 3rd, about half second behind Kieran Harrison. So again, we have 2 laps to see. Will these guys pit for fuel, or will they have the strategy of saving fuel pay off for them?
Yeah, and as you remember for last heat, I think Juan Blanat and Harrison both pitted on this very lap, and it looks like they're putting it pretty heavy pedal to the metal right now. So Pascucci might be in a little bit difficult position right now. Does he push ahead and risk losing fuel at the very last section of the race? Or does he hold back and then wait until he has that little bit extra fuel over these two drivers and make the pass happen there? Just behind him is Pedro D, so he has a little bit of leeway to make something happen and think of something just before we enter the penultimate lap as they're coming up to turn 11 into the home straight. So right now, this is the point in time where you're wondering like, okay, Kieran Harrison, Blanard, they're not pitting this lap. I don't think I should pit either because I think I have enough fuel. But do I have enough to actually make it past them?
Of course, after the Heat 1, everyone's strategies changed coming into Heat 2. And it looks like so far that has been paying off for Juan Blanart, Kieran Harrison, and Roman Pascucci as they go back into the back stretch, coming up to the bus stop. Now there's a little bit more gap as they have, but like we said, after this, we will have one lap to go, and everything is going to be laid out on the line. As we come back out the outer loop, of course, we see the two drivers ahead going very wide. We had people earlier getting a little bit squirrely in that corner, but now heading into turn 10, your leading order, Juan Blanart, Kieran Harrison, and Roman Pascucci are your current podium places. Back onto the home stretch. Here we go. White flags going.
Oh, if they're not pitting this lap, Watkins Glen might be kicking himself in the head a little bit. Once everyone's adjusted the strategy to get no stops out, his one stop is going to be extremely detrimental for him. But we'll have to see. He might still make it past the rest of the field if they run out of fuel. He's already only 2 seconds behind Assetto Resende. So he looks, this is the final lap. He has one opportunity to make a pass happen, and he wants to make it over half the grid. So it might be a bit difficult for him because there is a substantial gap between all of these drivers right now. So he might be in a pickle.
And of course, here we see Juan Blanart. Will he have enough of a gap to keep Harrison at bay? As Pascucci now dropping down about 3 seconds. We'll have to see what happened there earlier. He was a lot closer to the leading pack, but he's still in third place. As we're coming back down the last stretch, turns 10 and 11. Juan Blanart going in. Kieran Harrison trying to push it as hard as he can. Will he have enough as they come into the home stretch? Here we go. This is for the win. And Kieran Harrison making the move across. Kieran Harrison first place over Juan Blanart. What an absolute insane move. Did he have enough fuel? Did Blanart run out of fuel there at the end? We will have to see. What an absolute amazing finish here at Watkins Glen International.
Yeah, Valero's definitely not going to be happy with the strategy that he chose. He tried to compensate for the fact that he might run out of fuel, but ended up everyone adjusting their strategies to compensate for that instead of going for the pit stop. So he's not going to be happy with that result. Tim Stitt again, he also pitted as well, so he's definitely stuck pretty far behind. But what a drive near the end. I think Juan Blanart did definitely run out of fuel because there was no way Harrison was going to pick up that much speed without Blanart having himself in a bit of a situation there. But Kieran Harrison, the last ditch move to close out the race in a wonderful first place. So he's going to be really happy with that result. 2 P3s and 1 P1 definitely working out for him.
Absolutely. This was a great day of racing out at Watkins Glen. So many twists and turns going on, but there is your BenQ session winner, Kieran Harrison, who also had the fastest lap. And you know, that pressure was immense, but he came away with the win. And Juan Blanart, unfortunately getting past at the last moment, ends up in second place with that silver medal, as well as Roman Pascucci in third, Pedro Dean in fourth place, Caio Gaspar in fifth, Kulavi in sixth, Fabio Zamperlini seventh place, Jackson SNJ in eighth, Gaio Valero ending up in ninth. Unfortunately, his fuel strategy did not pay off this heat, and Tim State rounding it out in the 10th place. Man, what an absolute turn of events here that we had today. No one expected the fuel strategy going into this. Wow, that's all I can say about this race. Just that absolute last minute fuel on Heat 1, turning the tables, and Gaio Valero, you know, going into Heat 2, he pitted early and unfortunately ended up near the bottom. Damon, I'm at a loss for words after that. That was amazing.
I think I share your sentiment, and it'll be interesting to see when we go to the player interviews later on how they manage to adjust to the lack of fuel that these cars have in the particular course. So I think you can take away the interviews later on once we're about ready for it. But up until then, I think, oh my god, it's really tough to call.
Yeah, and I think first we are going to talk to Gael Valero first, who had that unfortunate ending in Heat 2, did great in Heat 1, but we're about to head over to the interview room with Gael Valero. Gael Valero, how are you feeling after that race?
Bad.
You went into heat number 2. We seen you went pitted early. We were speculating that, no one expected the fuel to be running out here. What was your strategy going into heat 2?
Well, opposite to everyone, really. Try to learn from race 1 and do something different, and obviously they learned themselves from race 1 and decided to collaborate more than anything, so kind of fucked everything.
Yes, congratulations on the amazing qualifying. You always do well in qualifying. And we will have to see for the next race coming up. Again, we had mentioned, now that we know there is a possibility of possibly not having enough fuel on some of these further races, is that going to change how you come into these races?
It's an outlier already. It's not gonna happen, I think, in any other cars. Don't know why it happened already, but I guess the track made it that way. So we'll see a track where we have a lot of throttling, and maybe just check the fuel next time.
And of course, being one of the fan favorites here, especially the only driver in the Ford, can we expect to see some more Fords in the future races from you?
Well, that's not many Ford, right? The GT3 is kinda bad, and the Nascar one is in AMX Light, so not really my priority. So I don't think, if there is no more supercars, sadly no more Ford.
Well, thank you, Gael. And of course, top qualifying, doing great. The only Ford on the field today. Gael, anyone that you want to have a shout out to?
Thanks to my mom for making me here.
And we thank your mom also for having you here. Gael Valero, thank you for joining us today. It has been great, and we look forward to the rest of the season with you.
Yeah.
And now coming up, we have Kieran Harrison, who had the last second win there in heat number 2. Kieran, how does it feel to get this win?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased. I felt a bit robbed in the first race because I didn't even realize we were going to run out of fuel until like lap 15 or something. So I thought at that point, okay, I'm still going to win. I didn't realize the two guys were going to be able to save fuel to the end, but then for race 2, I guess the strategy was obvious, that it was best to try and save instead of pitting. And I had no idea who was going to have the most fuel at the end. I was delighted when I came out the last corner and he was spluttering. I started spluttering just as I went across the start-finish line. So it was pretty touch and go for myself as well.
So going into heat number 2, of course, we've seen everyone's strategy had to change. I think that was a surprise. It was a surprise for us as well as all of the drivers. But going into that last one, did you think, okay, am I going to save fuel or am I going to have to pit? At what point did you make that decision?
I mean, I made that decision like as soon as I didn't win the first race because the other guys managed to save enough fuel. I knew that I had to give it a go. I mean, obviously I used quite a bit of my fuel up early on to try and get near the front, and then I just sort of settled in behind Juan after we got to P1 and 2 and just saved behind him for a while. I kind of thought I messed it up when I overtook him in the middle of the race and then got a slowdown, so he gapped me by about a second and a half, and I had to use quite a bit of fuel to catch up, so I thought that might have given him the advantage on fuel, but it must have been really close between us.
Yeah, that was, I think, probably one of the best finishes we've had this season, going into the final turn with the overtake. Kieran. Guile was the last interview.
Yeah.
Kieran, who would you like to thank today?
I'd just like to thank my friends and family who always tune in to watch my races. Thank you for always supporting me. And of course my team, SimRC. I normally have some support from Corentin, but he's not here tonight, but I'm sure he'll be back.
Yes, of course, there's a lot of drivers missing today, and we know that the iRacing, the 12 Hours of Sabering are going on. Are you going to be competing in that this weekend at any time?
I'm not personally. My team did have a car in LMP2, but I think they had some rain-related issues early on in the race. They were doing quite well until that point.
Awesome. Well, Kieran, thank you for being here and joining us today. We hope to see you in the winner's circle again in the future and come back here. Are you going to be next weekend, perhaps?
Possibly not next weekend. I'm racing on Tuesday, but I'm not sure beyond that.
All right. Well, of course, we always love having you here coming to racing. It is always close races. You are an amazing driver and always getting some really interesting races for us. It makes our job as a commentator extremely easy when you guys are this good. Thank you, Kieran, for joining us, and we will see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. What an amazing day it has been. Started off with NASCAR earlier on and finishing it up with the V8 Supercars out here at Watkins Glen. A fantastic finish, and unfortunately, a surprise for everyone, like we mentioned earlier. That pit stop strategy, some of these guys saving fuel, it made for an absolutely interesting race.
Yeah, and it looks like it might have to factor into some of the decisions that these drivers will make as we're running out. I think this is probably 3 weeks left until the end of the season, so we don't have that many races left. It probably wouldn't affect too much of the calendar, but regardless, it'll be interesting to see if any split-second decisions like that have to be made again by these drivers.
Yeah, and of course, like you mentioned, with the few weeks left coming up, we will see now with the iRacing special events going on, what drivers that weren't able to make it today, how this is going to affect them for the championship. But hopefully, we will see them come back. And today, here are your AMX winners. Of course, your overall winners for today, Kieran Harrison with the amazing Heat 2 finish. In second place, Juan Blaynot, who of course was also extremely fast throughout the entire session. Third place, Gaio Valero. And going down, also tied for third place, we have Caio Vinicius Gaspar. Fourth place, Gaston Prestoculavi. Fifth place, Roman Pascucci. In sixth place, Pedro Dean. Seventh, Fabio Zamperlini. Eighth place, Jackson SNJ. And in ninth place, we have Tim State. So, of course, as always, we love having everyone here coming out to watch AMX 1, AMX 10. Both of them, we had some amazing moments. And of course, we are here for every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. Of course, the viewers at home, make sure to come back tomorrow. We will be live streaming same time, starting at 5:50 p.m. GMT. Make sure to follow all of our socials that are on the screen right now below us. Damon, any final words before we head off and come back for tomorrow?
I won't be around to see the racing tomorrow, but I'm sure it'll be a banger, just like every other race I've commentated for. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. We're rounding up season 4 now. We're near the end, and it's been really fun so far.
Absolutely. It has been a great time being with you here today, Damon, being here with all of the drivers, all of the viewers. I'm so glad to be here, and I will be seeing you all tomorrow again. Of course, we do have, starting off with our ACC, Assetto Corsa is part of our AMX1. So if you want to hop in, there's still time to go over to amxrace.com, get signed up. Of course, the AMX1 races are open to everyone. And if you want to hop into the AMX10 and come out here and have some of these amazing battles, 2,000 iRating for those. But we love seeing you. I am Kevin Garcia, and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye.